Chapter 1160. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei didn't know whether he had been attacked or not. He just knew there was an attack subconsciously. Zhang Xuanyu was shocked. So fast. And Han Fei was horrified. If you remember correctly, Zhang Xuanyu had been pierced just now. Following that, a hand descended from the sky and slammed down. Han Fei watched as a sword-wielding expert was smashed into smithereens by this slap. Old Bai shouted, "Take these children away. Family, don't you want a son-in-law? Take them." Han Fei suddenly realized something and hurriedly looked up, only to see that Zhang Xuanyu had been taken away by a big void hand. He didn't know that person, but he was so handsome and seemed to be on par with Zhang Xuanyu. Then Old Bai shouted again, "What else? Take the damn fatty away too." On the other side, Luren Kuang appeared below, crying and shouting, "I won't go." Han Fei looked at the void. An old man with a stubble beard drew a huge arc in the sky and blocked in front of Luren Kuang. The next moment, Han Fei twisted his body again and dodged a fist mark. It seemed that someone was suspicious that Han Fei was not hit. Han Fei activated the Heavenly Void Divine Walking Technique and stabbed a high-quality divine weapon into the sky. Han Fei roared, "President, run!" However, before Han Fei could do anything, he was slapped away by Old Bai. "What are you doing, kid? Get out of here!" Old Bai roared, grabbed the divine weapon, and rushed to the sky. Below, as soon as Han Fei came back to his senses, a faceless man rushed over and took off his mask. "Mr. Xiaozhan," Xiaozhan shouted, "remember to take revenge." "Revenge? What revenge?" "Rumble," before Xiaozhan answered. Han Fei's eyes almost popped out. Old Bai blew himself up in the sky. "Old Bai, President, wait, something's not right." Han Fei frowned. "Why did you blow yourself up when you had a divine weapon? Could it be that this old man was pretending?" Xiaozhan grabbed Han Fei with one hand and tried to throw him away, but Han Fei refused. In his memory, Xiaozhan was about to self-destruct. Han Fei grabbed Xiaozhan with a backhand, and with a swish, they appeared on the battlefield below. The two of them rushed all the way. Soon, Han Fei found one Rinyu who was fighting with a law enforcer. Roar! The moment the 100B soul suppression palm was unleashed, the law enforcer was roared to death. Han Fei grabbed one Rinyu and asked, "Mr. Xiaozhan, where are we going?" One Rinyu shouted, "Han Fei, let go of him. Stop pulling the fish. Let's run." One Rinyu shouted, "The direction is wrong. Go diagonally." At this moment, in the sky, a cold voice echoed, "The Thug Academy is going against the law. You deserve to die." A voice reverberated in all directions. "Today, I will annihilate all your teachers and students." Someone shouted, "You want to kill me? Why don't you take a look at what kind of trash you are?" One after another, people that Han Fei didn't know appeared in the sky, on the ground, and over the city. The sky was hazy and a rain of blood was sprinkling down. Rumbling sounds and explosions rang out incessantly. One Rinyu shouted, "Han Fei, let go of me. We have a way out." Han Fei shouted, "Liar." One Rinyu was speechless. She took out a jade slip and showed it to Han Fei. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. It turned out to be a teleportation array. One Rinyu shouted, "Do you see it? Let go of me." Han Fei was speechless. Why does it feel different from what I remember? Something is wrong. Could it be that the prophecy I saw back then was wrong? Suddenly, Han Fei saw Luo Xiaobai and Jiuyin Ling in the distance. Jiuyin Ling was flying towards him. Xiaozhan said, "Han Fei, go by yourself. Our paths are different. Get lost." Han Fei thought for a moment and found that something was wrong. There were many scenes that he didn't see. Old Bai's self-explosion just now was too abnormal. Was it a way for them to escape? Han Fei asked, "Teachers, you won't explode to death, will you?" One Rinyu scolded angrily. "What are you thinking? I haven't even lived half of my life yet." Hearing that, Han Fei immediately let go of her and flashed away. It seemed that he had made a mistake. Han Fei grabbed Jiuyin Ling and ran crazily while looking at Luo Xiaobai. "Xiaobai, what are you doing? Let's go." Luo Xiaobai slightly shook her head. "We have to disperse for now. You go by yourself. I'll go back to the clan." Knife and sword light flashed around him. Han Fei stomped on the array, and the infinity water swept out and killed 2 law enforcers. Chilla. 7 sword lights swept at him. Han Fei frowned. 7 swordsmen from the War Soul Realm? No, the enemy is an explorer. Han Fei pushed Jiuyin Ling away and cut through the void with Snowmorn in his hand. Luo Xiaobai took the opportunity to throw a ball-like seed into the sky. Boom! In the white light, the enemy explorer broke through the air with a long stick. Han Fei thought to himself, how can such an attack be difficult for me? However, before Han Fei flew away, a large area of spider silk suddenly emerged within 1,000 meters. Boom! Han Fei was about to activate the Great Dipper Array, but then he realized that Jiuyin Ling was still behind him. Immediately, he roared, stepped on the Great Plate Turtle Array, and punched out the sacrificing punch. With a single punch, he blasted a hole through the layers of silk nets. Han Fei, on the other hand, was hit by the long stick. Boom! The enemy's divine weapon exploded, and Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood and was blown away. In a daze, Han Fei heard someone shout, "No, this kid's body is too strong. We have to kill him." At that moment, Han Fei felt that his head was in a mess. He seemed to see Jiuyin Ling drawing a teleportation array with one hand. Then, he seemed to see the shadow of a big turtle, which was full of black gas. Then, Han Fei felt that his vision went dark, as if he had been hit by something. His entire person was like a meteor streaking across the sky, falling down. At that moment, he felt that his bones were shattered and his internal organs were damaged. He vomited mouthfuls of blood. There was no telling how long it had been. Old Bai's voice seemed to come to his ears. "What happened to this kid?" Jiuyin Ling said weakly. "He was wounded by an explorer." Old Jiang roared, "Let's go." In the end, Han Fei survived 99% of the battle, but he was heavily wounded by the Demon King's contract. At this moment, Han Fei's head was still in a mess. In a daze, he was standing in the middle of nothingness. In front of him was an old giant tortoise. This tortoise was ugly, and its entire body was pitch black. Other people's turtle heads were a bit like a snake's. This guy's head was a bit like a crocodile's. Its eyeballs were facing forward, like the headlights of a car. When the big turtle saw Han Fei, it roared angrily, "You be ***, give me back my Tao. You're not kind enough to summon me here. I lent you my strength, but you tried to swallow me." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Wait, who are you?" Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to remember something, and his eyes widened. "Shoot, are you the old monster behind the Demon King's contract?" Han Fei remembered and had some impression of it. At that time, this old thing seemed to want to swallow his soul. Han Fei gritted his teeth and suddenly saw the demon purification pot floating in the air. The 2 small vines swayed slightly, emitting emerald fluorescence. Immediately, Han Fei realized that he might be in a very special state. Was he talking to this turtle with his spiritual sense? How did this tortoise get into his body? And it was suppressed by the demon purification pot. Yes, I was fighting. Jiuyin Ling saved me. An old Jiang. Han Fei immediately confirmed that he should be sleeping. He sank into his mind with his spiritual sense and was talking to this turtle. I wonder how the battle is going on outside. It was a mess. He couldn't figure out who was fighting whom. Especially the last battle, it was a mess. Zhang Xuanyu should have been taken away by Yixin's parents. Fatty, I wonder who took him away. As for Luo Xiaobai, she went home. Where was he? However, he didn't care anymore. Finally, he should be safe. Han Fei sneered. He glanced at the big black turtle and said with some disdain, "This is the first time I've seen such an ugly turtle. You old turtle, do you deserve to be called an emperor?" The old turtle roared, its eyes scarlet. "Boy, you came to me first. This empress saved your life, so your life should be this empress's." Oh, Han Fei rubbed his ears and thought. The Demon King's contract was pushed out by the demon purification pot. It seems that I have to be more careful about deducing secret techniques in the future. Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei curled his lips. "You saved my life?" Han Fei, I'm a king. Do you think I need you to save my life? Even if you did, so what? I can tell you're not a good person. Calabash, suck it to death. Hey. Boy, don't go too far. Let's calm down. Han Fei sneered. Now you know to calm down? What were you doing earlier? Han Fei made up his mind and let the demon purification pot suck this old thing to death. However, the demon purification pot didn't move. Huh, I've suppressed it. Can't I suck it to death? The old turtle looked nervous. Boy, what are you thinking? I'm telling you, don't have any evil thoughts. Otherwise, I'll die with you. Han Fei glanced at the turtle contemptuously. Hey, you're so arrogant. Calabash suck. Hey, don't. I'm just joking with you. Han Fei raised his head. Huh, how dare you call yourself an emperor when you're so cowardly? Tell me, where did you come from? The turtle's eyes were scarlet, and he stared at Han Fei, seeming to feel that something was wrong. Han Fei immediately frowned. Why are you still glaring at me? Do you know whose territory you are in? Calabash, give it to me. Enough, bastard. Don't call me Calabash. You can't control this Calabash, can you? If you could control it, you would have sucked this empress to death long ago. Human beings are really shameless. Han Fei pretended to be furious. What did you say? I can't control my Calabash? If I can't control it, who sucked you to death? You don't believe me, do you? If you don't believe me, I'll suck it to show you. Mommy, coax me. The old man in heaven is as urgent as the law. Then, Han Fei found that the big turtle looked at him as if he were an idiot, as if asking him to keep acting. Humph. Han Fei waved his hand and said, Forget it. I won't argue with you. I don't think you're weak. If it weren't for the fact that you seem to have a background, I would have sucked you to death. The third chapter, asking for votes. I don't think there will be any big updates this month. May is almost useless. At least let me take a break. Besides, typing on the keyboard is not the most tiring thing. I have to make up a plot in my head. How to string the complicated plot together is the most difficult thing. Brothers, please don't urge me to update. My scalp is numb now. I need to think. Let me take a break. End of this chapter. Chapter 1161. Han Fei knew that he couldn't pretend anymore. If he had known this, he would have been calmer and acted more realistically. Han Fei stopped pretending and spread out his hands. Okay, you've been talking for a long time. Tell me, who the hell are you? Where did you come from? The big turtle said leisurely, I am the primitive emperor. Watch your mouth, boy. As for where I came from, you don't know. If you hadn't practiced the Demon King's contract that I left behind, do you think I would be willing to come? Han Fei sneered. I think you are willing. Let me think about it. I'm a bit confused. Oh, are you going to give me power? You want to give me eternal life. Come on, give me some first. The big turtle, Han Fei sneered. Look, you don't keep your words. Give me power? If I didn't want to make up the numbers, would I have used your Demon King's contract? Han Fei said, but his brain was working fast. This old turtle seems to have a powerful background. The Demon King's contract is a venerable level secret technique. Those who can create this secret technique must at least be at the venerable realm. Moreover, this old turtle kept saying, this emperor. Could it be that he was really an emperor? That's not right. I've never heard of this realm. Is there an emperor realm above the king realm? But then he thought it was a bit wrong. The king realm is just a name. The real realm is called the sea expansion realm, and above it is the sky expansion realm. Right? Emperor? Beast emperor. Han Fei couldn't help saying, Big turtle, I don't care who you are or how strong you used to be. But you are my territory after all. If you are of no use to me, we will eventually fall out with each other in the future. So, you have to tell me something useful. For example, what are the realms above the sea expansion realm? Emperor, what level are you at? Where are you from? Is there a way to gain power? I don't have many questions. Anyway, we have a long way to go. If looks could kill, Han Fei felt that he would have been stared to death by the big red eyes of the big turtle. But at this moment, he didn't panic at all. This should be a strong master. If he used him well, he might have a helper in the future. But she heard the old turtle's deep voice. Didn't your parents tell you not to be too curious? You're just a peak law enforcer. What's the use of asking about the realms above the king realm? As for the emperor level, it's a level that you can't even imagine. Han Fei sneered. Are you sure you want to talk to me like this? Could it be that you can't see that I have the potential to become a king? The sound of grinding teeth came from the big turtle's mouth. He probably wanted to swallow the narcissistic Han Fei in one bite. However, he was under the eaves, so he had to lower his head. He heard it say leisurely, Kid, even if you have the potential to become a king, you should first go through the minor heavens tribulation. As for the realms you mentioned, kings can open up the seas, emperors can open up the skies, eternal emperors can become emperors, and Tao fusion can become gods. Every realm contained an immeasurable amount of cosmos. You little brat, even if you know now, what can you do? You won't be able to understand it all, and will only increase your burden. Han Fei frowned. Damn it, there were still so many realms after that. He was still 2 great realms away from becoming a king, explorer, and venerable. When would he be able to stop? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Are you really an emperor? The big turtle immediately roared. Of course. You brat, give me back my Tao. Huh. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh and glanced at the demon purification pot. Damn, it can even eat other people's Tao. What's the origin of the demon purification pot? Isn't it too ferocious? Han Fei knew very little about the demon purification pot anyway. Under normal circumstances, except for deductions, it was needed in Forge the Universe to store things, so it seemed to be useless. Refining? With the 100 battles divine hammer, as long as I had enough materials, refining divine weapons was like a game to me. Han Fei said in disgust, Hey, don't howl. Who told you to swallow me? If you didn't swallow me, would your Tao be gone? It's all your own fault. It's none of my business. Now tell me, where did you come from? Han Fei was about to continue talking to the big turtle, when he suddenly felt unsteady, and a voice seemed to ring in his mind. Han Fei, wake up. Brat. Pa in the void. Han Fei felt that his head was buzzing as if it had been slapped. His vision blurred, and a dazzling light shone into his eyes. When Han Fei opened his eyes, he saw an ordinary-looking village girl and an old man with a wrinkled face staring at him. More importantly, the old man wanted to slap him. Han Fei hurriedly reached out to stop them. Wait, who are you? The old man scolded. Don't you know who I am? Huh, you sound so arrogant. Old Jiang? Old Jiang snorted. You have a conscience, boy. I risked my life to get out for you. Han Fei glanced at the village girl again and gasped. Jiuyin Ling? Jiuyin Ling nodded quickly, looking delighted. She seemed to have been worried sick. With a swish, Han Fei sat up. Wait, old Jiang, where are we? How about the 1,000-star city? Where are old Han, Ren Tianfei, and our unreliable patriarch? Old Jiang stretched out his hand and was about to slap him. Who are you calling unreliable? It's the thug patriarch. Han Fei remembered the patriarch who had become a big skeleton and sighed. I thought the devil had arrived. Where's old Han? Old Jiang said, Don't worry about that. The situation in the 1,000-star city is also complicated. Your father ran away, and so did the thug patriarch and Ren Tianfei. Han Fei was immediately relieved. That's good. Each and every one of them was so awesome that I was dumbfounded. Hey, old Jiang, what's going on? Why did you start a full-scale war? Why did you ask us to go to the 1,000-star city? Old Jiang clicked his tongue and said, We wanted you to be the bait. Originally, we were prepared to wait a few years before launching this war of vengeance. Who would have thought that you'd cause such a big commotion in just a few days? Now, you can even become an explorer? Han Fei automatically ignored the second half of old Jiang's words and glared at him. Bait? What bait? Old Jiang said proudly. First of all, it's for revenge itself. After all, we have to avenge the Thug Academy. We have to talk to those big clans and let them remember that the Thug Academy is not to be trifled with. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched, and he muttered in his heart, This is a typical villain. The Avengers were earth-shattering and slaughtered venerable Feng in one day. Half of the strong forces in the 1,000-star city were wiped out. However, it didn't matter. Anyway, those big clans didn't care about anything. They only knew how to make money and find ways to go to the Divine Palace. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, What's the second reason? Old Jiang snorted and smiled. In addition to revenge, I'll help you clear the obstacles and kill a group of them first. Otherwise, it won't be easy for you to enter the Divine Palace. There are too many strong masters. If I don't take the opportunity to kill a group of them, it will be difficult for me to have such an opportunity in the future. Your appearance has attracted all their attention. Do you think those venerables can tolerate you if you really have the talent to become a king? Of course, they will find a way to kill you. Han Fei was speechless. So you're not afraid that I'll really kill you? Old Jiang waved his hand. Who doesn't have a few major tribulations on the path of cultivation? Look, didn't you make it through? Han Fei, old Jiang said leisurely. The third reason. Han Fei's eyes widened. They're the third reason? Old Jiang smiled contemptuously. Do you think we're just playing? Old Jiang said proudly. After this battle, the 36 towns and the level 3 fishery will be ours. They won't dare to leave the 1,000-star city after the death of the 3 venerables. If they dare to come out, I'm sure they'll lose their homes. Han Fei, old Jiang smiled and said, the fourth reason is to send the Thug Patriarch to the God's Memorial Tower. That's done. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Is there a fifth reason? Old Jiang said, the fifth reason is to save you, right? Han Fei rolled his eyes. He didn't feel good. Compared with these old foxes, I'm too king naive. However, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. Wait, the Thug Patriarch went to the God's Memorial Tower? Why? To the Immortal Palace? Han Fei knew that there was a controller of the Immortal Palace in the central holy city of the 1,000-star city. He was also a venerable. Even if there was no controller, there was still a big killing array in the central holy city. Old Jiang said proudly, of course to the Immortal Palace. The real corpse of the Thug Patriarch is still in the Immortal Palace. Otherwise, do you think the Thug Patriarch's combat power is so low? If it weren't for the fact that his corpse is gone, he would have killed at least 2 more venerables. No. If the Thug Patriarch's corpse is still here, Chao Qinji of the Chao family won't sit by and watch, and the Heavenly Sword Master won't take action. You won't understand. As long as the Thug Patriarch can fuse with his corpse, his strength will definitely increase again. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Then my junior uncle Faceless will always be the Thug Patriarch. Old Jiang curled his lips. Sometimes not. You don't have to worry about that. After this battle, the large clans should have calmed down a lot. In the next few years, you just consolidate your strength. Your improvement is really too fast. It doesn't make sense. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Where did Luren Kuang and Zhang Xuanyu go? Old Jiang said leisurely, when you reach the law enforcer realm, everyone should have their own path. You can't be together forever. From this battle, you should have found it. When one's strength broke through too quickly, their role would become dispensable. Then you should improve yourself. Han Fei asked, what about old Han? Old Jiang said angrily, you have too many questions. He is a venerable. How would I know where he went? Han Fei said, one last question. Where did the Thug Academy get so many faceless powerhouses? So many explorers are from the Thug Academy. Is the Thug Academy so strong? Old Jiang stared at Han Fei for a while. So, you still need experience. Do you think those people are from the Thug Academy? The big clans, the 7 major sects, and the rogue cultivators all have a grudge against the big clans. And there are more than 1 or 2 who want to overthrow them. If there is such an opportunity, do you think they won't take action? Wow! Han Fei took a deep breath. He understood everything. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1162. This all-out war did not mean that it would last for a long time. After all, both sides had sacrificed a lot. This battle was the eruption of many people who had been suppressed to the extreme. In a class-based society, there would inevitably be oppression and resistance. However, the resistance this time around was a little too intense. Just like the immortal abode, many factors had led to this battle. It was hard to say whether such a battle would break out again in the future. Knowing the cause and effect, Han Fei was relieved. Then where are we now? Old Jiang, let me tell you, those venerables are very good at calculating. Let's not let those people find us, or we'll be done for. Old Jiang glanced at Han Fei weirdly. I'm afraid you don't know your own situation, do you? In your father's words, in your current state, you can't even predict the state of a king. So what's the use of being a venerable? Ah, Han Fei swallowed and murmured. Am I already so awesome? TSK. Old Jiang rolled his eyes. All right, as long as they can't find you, they won't spend so much time looking for other people. 3 venerables have fallen, and you want them to leave the Thousand-Star City? They have to have the guts to do it. Han Fei took a breath. What about the Thousand-Star City? What will happen to Xiao Bai's family, the Jiuyin family, and the Heavenly Sword sect? Old Jiang paused and smiled. Don't worry about the Luo family. The divine technique of the Luo family is no joke. You don't have to worry about the Heaven's Sword sect. With the 7 major sects as one, how could the aristocratic families dare to act against the Heaven's Sword sect? The consequences would not be good. The Chao family, the Chun family, and the other families that don't participate in the war are also happy to see this happen. As he spoke, old Jiang glanced at Jiuyin Ling and said casually, as for the Jiuyin family, Jiuyin Lai submitted to the Luo family and was saved. However, his strength would definitely drop, and he would probably fall below the level of an explorer. As for your sister, she has already gone to the Scattered Stars Island. It's fine. Jiuyin Ling was secretly relieved, but she didn't say anything. Perhaps Jiuyin Ling was on the Thug Academy's side in a daze. However, Jiuyin Lai was not a naive girl. She was betting everything she had. He was certain that Jiuyin Ling would have great achievements in the future if she stayed by Han Fei's side. Old Jiang said, Okay, since you're awake, I'm leaving. Although this battle could be said to be a great victory for us, the resources that we had accumulated over the past few decades were all used up in one go. This time, explorers from both sides had fallen, and the losses were too great. Those that were not destroyed were probably completely gone. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they probably wouldn't come out again. It's time for me to disappear. Now that I'm in a good mood, Old Bai and I are going to try to break through to the Venerable Realm. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Can it work? Old Jiang chuckled. How can it be so easy? Anyway, you guys stay here. Although no one will know where you are, you still have to keep a low profile. He didn't want to be discovered by the people hiding in the 36 towns before he could calculate it for them. You have to keep your strength suppressed. You can't expose it. Although they won't deliberately look for other people, they are still very concerned about you. If they find you, it's hard to guarantee that those people won't leave the Thousand-Star City. With that, old Jiang stomped his foot, and a teleportation array appeared. With a swoosh, he disappeared. Han Fei was still in a daze. When the teleportation array disappeared, Han Fei wanted to ask a few more questions, but old Jiang had already left. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Jiuyin Ling. Where is this? Jiuyin Ling pursed her lips and blushed. Cloud Soaring Town, Wind and Rain Village. Puff. Where? Jiuyin Ling was puzzled. Why? Is there a problem? Cloud Soaring Town, Wind and Rain Village? Oh, old Jiang, come out. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Jiuyin Ling. Are we the only ones here? Jiuyin Ling thought for a moment and finally nodded. Yes. Do you want to ask a girl about this? Han Fei looked at Jiuyin Ling in surprise. You even know this? Why didn't I know? Jiuyin Ling thought for a moment and said after a long time, Well, Senior Uncle Faceless said that you have a knot in your heart because you entered the level 3 fishery for the first time. At that time, you were still young and didn't have enough experience. That's why you have a knot in your heart. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Senior Uncle Faceless, isn't that the patriarch of the thug sect, Li Daxian? Yes, an almighty venerable, a super expert who once suppressed the Thousand-Star City. How could he not know what happened to him back then? However, he didn't save her. Suddenly, Han Fei's face changed. She's not dead? Jiuyin Ling shook her head. No, she's dead. Han Fei frowned even more. If she's dead, why are we in the Cloud Soaring Town now? Jiuyin Ling said again, She doesn't seem to be dead. Han Fei was lost for words. Wait, is she dead or not? Hiss, an undead creature? Han Fei was shocked. Thinking of Li Daxian's own state, how could he not understand? Han Fei immediately said angrily, Li Daxian, CKU. Juyin Ling secretly stuck out her tongue and thought to herself, "Why are you even cursing the venerable?" Han Fei said angrily. "Couldn't he have helped me back then? He could have helped me. Now, I'm in a difficult position." As he spoke, Han Fei suddenly looked at Juyin Ling and couldn't help but say leisurely, "Little Jiu, when did you know the patriarch of the thug sect?" Juyin Ling blushed and said awkwardly, No, I didn't know that Senior Uncle Faceless was seniorly. He just asked me if I wanted to be with you. Then he said he would bring me to a place and told me that you would have a big tribulation." After listening to Juyin Ling's story, Han Fei was dumbfounded. They were all sly old foxes. Those people had set up countless traps from top to bottom, from left to right. It could be said that all the people around him who could be used had basically been used. In the end, it was Juyin Ling who rescued him from the Thousand Star City because they had roughly predicted that there would be an accident. Zhang Xuanyu and Luo Xiaobai were too popular, but Juyin Ling was different. Although Juyin Ling was talented, she was not a genius, nor was she strong enough. She didn't have a powerful family, so of course, not many people paid attention to her. Therefore, the one who could and could save him the most was Juyin Ling. Han Fei was speechless. In front of them, he was as pure as a little white fish. Li Daxian didn't have the ability to predict, so he must have contacted old Han. That was why he knew that he would have a big tribulation and arrange for Juyin Ling in advance. Everything was arranged, and the matter of the sea-quelling painting was also settled. This matter involved Ren Tianfei again. It could be seen that Ren Tianfei was actually on their side. Yes, these three were on the same side. How long had they hooked up with each other? The three of them had put on a show and set up a big picture. Except for these three, including himself and Old Bai, they were all pawns. And all this should have started from the road that old Han paved for him. This road was his road to becoming a king. From the beginning to the end, his growth was clearly arranged by someone else. He had thought that he was extremely talented and lucky. Han Fei pondered and asked, "Where is she?" There was a reason why Juyin Ling pretended to be a village girl. In fact, this family of two died in an accident in the ordinary fishery. Therefore, this small courtyard was controlled by the faceless man. To the outside world, Han Fei was a level 8 fisher, and his name was Ironblade. People usually called him Old Iron. When he heard this name, Han Fei was speechless. Damn it! When he went out, everyone called him Old Iron? What was going on? It seemed that because of the name Ironblade, this Old Iron was also a blacksmith. Of course, the blacksmiths in the village were actually blacksmiths and had nothing to do with refining. Juyin Ling, who looked like a village girl, was certainly not as beautiful as she used to be. Her skin was a little dark, and she was very ordinary. She was not very ugly or beautiful, just the kind that no one would remember if she was thrown into a crowd. She played the role of Han Fei's wife, named Zhou Nan. She was a level 6 fisher and basically had no hope of reaching level 7. She was generally responsible for the family's fish tax. This was a very ordinary family. Because Old Iron was not good at forging, he often went fishing with his wife. At this moment, when the two of them went out, Han Fei felt a strong village atmosphere. In a large tank at the door, there were 7 or 8 big sea clams. The simple drainage channel was where seafood was cleaned. The stone tables and iron hammers placed randomly in the courtyard were all Han Fei's forging tools. However, the small courtyards next door told Han Fei that this house was relatively remote and definitely not an advantageous location in the village. When the two of them went out, they saw a young girl cooking 5 big sea clams in a courtyard next door. The girl was about 13 or 14 years old and looked a little thin. At this moment, she only showed the strength of a level 7 fisher. Han Fei glanced at Juyin Ling in surprise. This little girl was disabled as a fishing master. She was seriously injured. Juyin Ling nodded and said via voice transmission, "Her name is Lin Wu, Lin Miao Miao's younger sister." In the battle for resources, the village was hit hard by the neighboring village. Because she was disabled and spiritual fruits were too luxurious, she could only live like this. Han Fei frowned. Lin Wu, younger sister? Didn't the village arrange a job for her who was disabled because of the battle for resources? Zhuyin Ling said. She refused to accept it and believed that she still had hope to rise. One day, she hoped that she could return to the realm of a fishing master. So, she gave up the position arranged by the village and insisted on going to sea every day. Seeing Han Fei and the others going out, Lin Wu immediately waved her hand. Uncle Iron, Annie Nan, have you had breakfast? Let's eat together. Zhuyin Ling said to Han Fei, we usually don't eat together. You're more honest and simple. I'm not very talkative. It seems that they're just neighbors. Han Fei was surprised. Am I a fool? Why do I always pretend to be a fool? However, I seem to be a professional in this aspect. My acting skills have already reached the point of perfection. Considering that he might have to stay in this wind and rain village for a long time, Han Fei smiled innocently. Little Wu, why did you get up so early to cook? You eat by yourself. Your Auntie Nan and I are going to sea today. Lin Wu waved her hand. Uncle Iron, Auntie Nan, be careful. Han Fei didn't rush to contact the girl, but frowned slightly. Little Nine, has Lin Miao Miao ever come back? Zhuyin Ling shook her head slightly. An undead creature may not be able to come back, right? Junior Uncle Faceless said that the reason why she chose this place is to help you overcome the knot in your heart. After all, Lin Miao Miao lives in another way. You shouldn't keep thinking about her. Besides, Junior Uncle Faceless said that in the next few years, you'd better think about everything you have done before. There may be many small things that should be resolved. If you can achieve a flawless state of mind, it will be good for your breakthrough. Han Fei curled his lips. It's easy to say. I've almost forgotten what I have done before. I should follow my heart. Even those evil people can make breakthroughs, can't they? So, following my heart may be the easiest way? Han Fei counted with his fingers. It seemed that he had caused quite a lot of trouble. Han Fei shrugged. Okay, take it slow. I also need to consolidate my foundation. Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1163. Lin Wu didn't know why. In the past month, she found that the spiritual energy around her home seemed to have improved a little, which made her injuries further recover. It seemed that it was only a matter of time before she became a level 8 fisher. This was something to be happy about, so she worked harder. Since her sister went to the town and hadn't come back for so many years, she had a rough guess. However, she couldn't lose hope. She had to find a way to look for it. Looking for someone, she had to be strong. Her first step was to find a way to return to the realm of a fishing master. At this moment, because the spiritual energy had become slightly richer, she ran from home to a small hill not far from her home to cultivate. At night, the spiritual energy would be stronger. That night, Lin Wu came to this small hill, as usual, but was surprised to find that someone was barbecuing food at the place where she usually cultivated. The sound of sizzling oil was very clear. The smell wafting in the air was also very tempting. Lin Wu immediately became vigilant. What kind of person would come out to barbecue in the middle of the night? So Lin Wu turned around and left, for fear that she would meet a bad guy. However, for 3 days in a row, every time Lin Wu wanted to come here to cultivate, she would see someone barbecuing there. This made her a little speechless. She couldn't give up cultivating just to eat alone, could she? The spiritual qi on this small hillside was obviously denser. Just when Lin Wu hesitated, an old voice came leisurely. Little girl, are you afraid that I will eat you? Lin Wu's heart tightened. It sounds like an old man. But were there no bad guys in old men? Those who were supposed to be bad would always be bad. Lin Wu thought for a while, bit the bullet, and walked towards the hill. She had to cultivate. What if this old man was not a bad guy? Lin Wu swallowed a mouthful of saliva when he got closer. Isn't this smell a little too good? When she got closer, she found a kind-looking old man with a white beard was roasting a strange prawn. He also sprinkled some powdery things on it from time to time. But these were not the key points. What surprised her the most was that when she approached the old man, she found that the density of the surrounding spiritual energy was more than twice as strong as before. Lin Wu wasn't stupid. His first reaction was that he had men expert. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Senior, I don't have any other intentions. I just feel that cultivation is a relatively private matter. Since Senior is eating here, Junior should not disturb you. Xiao. Lin Wu subconsciously caught the wooden skewer. When he took a closer look, it was actually a skewer of prawn meat. It was golden in color, sizzling with oil, and its fragrance assailed his nostrils. Gulp. Lin Wu looked at the barbecue in her hands and swallowed her saliva. She didn't know what to do. Han Fei looked indifferent. Sure enough, they were a family. Lin Miao Miao was meticulous at the beginning, but she didn't expect her sister to be the same. Han Fei said leisurely, "Let's try." Lin Wu looked at the prawn skewers in her hand, and then at Han Fei, who was taking huge bites out of the skewers. From time to time, she would brush her fingers against the skewers. Is it really that delicious? Lin Wu thought to herself, this Senior shouldn't be weak. He should be at least a peak-level fishing master, right? He is so strong that he has no reason to harm me. Besides, I don't seem to be able to resist the taste. Chomp! Lin Wu took a small bite. Suddenly, Lin Wu's body trembled and her eyes widened. How could there be such a delicious thing in this world? 1 bite, 2 bites, 3 bites, she couldn't feel anything at all. Lin Wu was surprised to find that there was no meat on the skewer. However, before Lin Wu said anything, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Her body began to heat up and sweat dripped down. Lin Wu's face changed drastically. Senior, what on earth did you give me to eat? Han Fei looked up at Lin Wu and threw a jade slip to her. Little girl, you and I are destined to meet. You are so weak. Fine, I have a small technique here. I'll give it to you. Lin Wu took the jade slip and glanced at it. She was shocked to the extreme. This was a nameless body refining technique with 108 strange movements. Lin Wu resisted the impact of the terrifying energy in her body and suddenly heard a leisurely voice. If you don't cultivate, your body will explode in 100 seconds at most. Wow. Lin Wu didn't dare to hesitate. She quickly began to imitate the first movement and began to cultivate. It's so difficult. When Lin Wu made the first move, he felt uneasy. How could there be such a difficult movement in this world? However, it was also at this moment that she heaved a sigh of relief. The energy in her body seemed to have a place to vent and was circulating rapidly. Impurities were being discharged from the surface of her body. Bam! When the first ray of dawn appeared in the sky, Lin Wu directly lay on the ground. It was too tiring. This was more tiring than fighting on the sea for a day. However, the benefits were extremely obvious. In just one night, she was like a completely different person. Lin Wu felt that her strength had increased by more than 30%. Her physique seemed to have improved, and her dantian seemed to have recovered a lot. What a terrifying technique. However, when Lin Wu looked at the small soil slope again, the white-bearded old man was nowhere to be seen. Lin Wu immediately looked around and quickly held the jade slip. She knew that she had met an expert. An expert must have taught her a divine technique. This matter must not be leaked. Juyin Ling sensed that Lin Wu was sneaking back home and couldn't help but ask curiously, "Why don't you just teach her?" Han Fei chuckled. "Don't you think it's more interesting? I've become the white-bearded old man in other people's stories. Isn't it cool?" Juyin Ling, the next day, Lin Wu came to the small soil slope again and saw the white-bearded old man who was barbecuing again. She immediately knelt on both knees. "Master." Bam! An invisible force lifted Lin Wu up, and a voice filled with the vicissitudes of life could be heard. "I roam the world, and I have never accepted a disciple. However, you are too weak, so I'm just enlightening you." Lin Wu was a little flustered. Travel the world? How powerful must a person be to do that? For some people, the weak were like drowning people. It was their instinct to seize all opportunities that they could. Lin Wu immediately said respectfully, "Senior, please teach me. I'll definitely work hard." Han Fei pondered for a moment and realized that he couldn't make all kinds of arrangements. Everything had a cause and effect. It should be enough if he taught her a little more. Han Fei said, "Fine. Since you and I are fated, I'll give you some pointers for a few days." Lin Wu was overjoyed. She was about to kneel, but she was slapped up. Han Fei said leisurely, The strong kneel to the heavens and the earth, but not to the people. Along the way, tens of thousands of bones have died. There's no expert who kneels before you. Do you understand? Lin Wu was immediately shocked. Yes, senior. Han Fei finally touched his white beard. You're a promising kid. I'll be here for a month. During this month, you can ask me one question every day. After a month, we'll be even. You can go on your own. Lin Wu's heart tightened. This might be a month that would change her life. She had to think carefully about every question. Zhou Ling watched from a distance and couldn't help but chuckle. Han Fei was still the same old Han Fei. He was still very naughty. What are you laughing at? Things that are too easy to get will inevitably not be cherished. What I have is a reliable opportunity. Han Fei thought of the opportunities that Ren Tianfen had left for him, which were all based on luck. It was better for him to give opportunities in person. So on the first day, Lin Wu asked, Senior, can you tell me the realm above the great fishing master level? Han Fei said, It's not good to know in advance. Don't set a great goal for yourself. That goal may become your inner demon. Han Fei was also curious at the beginning, but he didn't get to know it until later. Right now, he felt that the matter of becoming a king was almost becoming a demon in his heart. So, he didn't intend to tell Lin Wu. The next day, Lin Wu asked, Senior, do you really have to kill people on the path of cultivation? Han Fei said, On the path of cultivation, there are millions of dead people. If you don't kill people, others will kill you. When you have absolute strength, do whatever you want. The third day, Lin Wu asked, Senior, how can I obtain the resources in the sea safely? Han Fei said, Rob. The 30th day. At this moment, Lin Wu had returned to the peak of level 9. In just 1 month, not only had she fully recovered from her injuries, but her strength was also several times stronger than when she was at the peak of level 9. All of this was the credit of the old senior in front of her. She knew that this might be the last time she saw this mysterious white-bearded old man. She thought about this question for a long time, but in the end, she gave up. On this day, Lin Wu asked, Senior, can I hug you? Puff. Cough, cough. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What? What are you thinking? Are excellent men really as dazzling as fireflies in the night? Can they attract girls no matter what? I'm already a white-bearded old man. Can't I escape this curse? Lin Wu grinned brightly. Senior, you are the second closest person to me in this world. Can you? Han Fei was silent for a while. Okay. However, when Han Fei was hugged by Lin Wu, he suddenly realized, cut off the karma? He was teaching Lin Miao Miao to cut off the karma, but now a new karma had been created. As for what the result would be, he didn't know yet. Immediately, Han Fei felt exhausted. It's so hard for me. Cough, cough. Then, Han Fei casually threw out a few fish skin maps. Fine, I've left a few small opportunities in this sea area. Whether you can get them or not, it depends on your own ability. Before Lin Wu had time to look at them, she saw Han Fei's body disappear in front of her eyes. At that moment, Lin Wu stood in place for a long time. Then she knelt down and kowtowed 3 times to the small soil slope. Master, Lin Wu will never kneel to anyone else in this life. The 3rd chapter, asking for votes. Transitional chapter, explain this paragraph. End of this chapter. Chapter 1164. Han Fei and Zhou Ling had seen everything that Lin Wu had done. Han Fei was speechless. Look, she's so promising. She taught me for nothing. Zhou Ling smiled foolishly. You're already an existence that can travel the world. Doesn't this little girl admire you? Han Fei looked at Zhou Ling with a weird expression and said, Little Nine, you've changed. You even know how to tease people. Don't forget that I taught you how to enter the human world. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Han Fei's heart. Hee hee, you talk nonsense every day. You're the only one who can teach opportunities. Your small opportunities are not enough for you to become an explorer. Han Fei's face darkened. Shut up. Do I have to teach someone in the Pioneer Sea realm to be considered an opportunity? Since chatting with the old turtle last time, Han Fei could already chat with this old turtle freely. Of course, the two of them were usually mocking each other, as if they couldn't stand each other. Of course, the origin of the old turtle was still an unsolved mystery. It seemed that this old turtle didn't even know where he was. Only through a secret method could he break free from some kind of shackles. But who knew that as soon as his soul escaped, Han Fei would cut off his Tao and basically cripple him. Therefore, Han Fei roughly knew that this old turtle still had some strength, but his body was gone, his soul was seriously injured, and his Tao was cut off. Even if he still had hidden strength under the suppression of the demon purification pot, he was no longer a threat. 4 years. It wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. Every day, the two of them went fishing on the sea like ordinary people. Of course, fishing was not real. They digested, grew, and cultivated in secret. However, Jiu Ling was repairing her foundation, and Han Fei was visualizing the God-scaring painting. The two of them were geniuses, and in such a harmonious state, they naturally made rapid progress. When they came back at night, the two of them lived separately. Most of all, Han Fei would talk to them about the ways of the world every day. For example, when someone in this family treated him to a meal, Han Fei would occasionally go there and get some low-quality wine to drink, so that he and Jiu Ling wouldn't be separated from normal life. Jiu Ling thought that since they were living together, it didn't matter if they slept together or not. As long as he could see Han Fei every day and listen to him babble, it would be good enough. It was better than when he was in the Thug Academy. After all, Luo Xiaobai often appeared out of nowhere in the Thug Academy. In the past 4 years, no acquaintances had appeared. Old Bai, Old Jiang, and everyone else related to him didn't show up. As for Lin Wu, as early as 3 years ago, the courtyard next door was empty. In the eyes of outsiders, Lin Wu had suddenly risen to power. After 2 years, he finally returned to the realm of a fishing master. Soon after Lin Wu left home, in the Wind Rain village, at least around Han Fei's home, people often heard rumors about Lin Wu. Lin Wu's strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and he had survived the small fish tide. Lin Wu had a conflict with someone, and he had been robbing that person for half a month. Lin Wu obtained a heaven-defying spiritual fruit in the level 2 fishery that could improve his spiritual heritage. The most recent story that had been circulating was from a year ago. It was said that Lin Wu had entered the Soaring Cloud Town arena and achieved 100 consecutive victories in solo battles, shocking the entire Soaring Cloud Town. But in Han Fei's ears, these so-called legends were quite normal. In every village, there would always be some people who would be remembered by the people. After that, it was the things that happened in the level 3 fishery which couldn't be spread to the village, so Han Fei didn't bother to pay attention to it. On this day, Han Fei and Jiu Ling, as usual, were greeted by people on the way to the port. "Old Tai, when are you going to forge a stick for me? You've been going to sea a lot recently." Han Fei said, "I'll do it when I come back." Someone laughed and said, "Old Tai, your craftsmanship seems to have improved recently. Why don't you open a shop and forge weapons? You won't starve to death." Han Fei smiled innocently. "I can't afford to open a shop." Someone said, "Old Tai, would you like some meatballs? Even if you don't eat them, Lil Nen will." Han Fei took out a pile of sea coins, counted 20, and handed them over. "Then, I'll have one." Every time this happened, Jiu Ling would wait aside with a smile. Whether the meatballs were delicious or not, Jiu Ling liked this feeling very much. When he took the meatball, Han Fei's innocent face suddenly trembled, and his body slightly stiffened. A leaf grew out of the withered branch. Jiu Ling narrowed her eyes and didn't look around warily. Han Fei took the meatball calmly, handed it to Jiu Ling, and said casually, "No one's here. It's time for me to go." Jiu Ling was slightly stiff. Although she knew that this day would come a long time ago, she didn't expect it to come so soon. On the surface of the ordinary fishery, Han Fei said, "Go to the Scattered Stars Island. Once Old Tai dies, someone will definitely come to trouble you. By then, you'll definitely have to take action. Why don't you change your identity and go to the Scattered Stars Island?" Jiu Ling nodded slightly. "Okay." At night, at the port of the Wind Rain village, dozens of fishing boats suddenly rushed over. Someone exclaimed, "Not good, there's a small fish tide in the fishery." After leaving the port, An inspector quickly shouted, "Where is it? How large is it?" Someone was still in shock. "It's not large. It seems to be only about 100 kilometers. However, I saw a boat being rammed." The next morning, the small fish tide became the topic of everyone's discussion. After investigation, the small fish tide seemed to be very harmless. It seemed that only a couple died. Those who knew him would sigh. "Old Tai is a good man, but good men don't live long." Someone would sigh. "Xiao Nan is also a good wife. I've never seen Xiao Nan and Old Tai quarrel. What a pity." 3 days passed. On the sea outside the Scattered Stars Island, on an ordinary fishing boat, Han Fei and Jiuyin Ling stood at the bow. Han Fei said, "Xiao Jiu, the damage to your foundation has already been repaired. You've seen a lot of worldly affairs in the past few years. It's time for you to make a breakthrough, right?" Jiuyin Ling nodded. "I'm going to the Empyrean Waterfall to make a breakthrough." Han Fei thought for a moment, took out a sea-swallowing seashell, and handed it to Jiuyin Ling. "If your strength improves too fast, and you want to become an explorer in the next few years, you must be very careful during your tribulation. Your path is not an easy one. There are a few array maps and 3 high-quality divine weapons in it, just in case." Jiuyin Ling smiled sweetly and took the sea-swallowing seashell naturally. "Okay, I'll try to wait for you to come back before making a breakthrough." Han Fei was lost for words. "If you can make a breakthrough, why are you waiting for me to come back?" Jiuyin Ling smiled playfully. "I don't trust other people when I'm transcending a tribulation." Han Fei curled his lips. "If you want to transcend a tribulation, look for Shueishenqi. Although I'm not sure if this guy's on our side, he will definitely be happy to see someone on the Scattered Stars Island becoming an explorer." Jiuyin Ling nodded. "Okay, I'll wait for you to come back." Han Fei was speechless. "Did you hear what I said? You should make a breakthrough. In 3 years, a war will break out on the Scattered Stars Island. In a year or 2 at most, the 10,000 Demon Valley will definitely take action. Also, it will definitely not be a war on the level of the 8 wings of Blue Feather. If you are not strong enough, it will be hard for you to protect yourself in a battle between experts." Jiuyin Ling nodded quickly. "Got it. Just go. I'm going to walk my own path too." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "You think I'm being long-winded? You've finally grown up." Han Fei smiled bitterly and said indifferently, "I'm leaving." Han Fei disappeared. In the past 4 years, he hadn't been doing nothing. Because of his level 9 spiritual heritage, even if he didn't do anything, his body would automatically absorb spiritual energy and energy to slowly transform his body. At this moment, if 4 years ago, he was still a peak-level law enforcer and hadn't fully adapted to the fusion of his great old body and himself, but now, Han Fei's strength had risen to a higher level. In terms of realm, he had really reached the peak of law enforcer. The indestructible body had also reached the limit, and he only needed to make a breakthrough with the help of the tribulation. Once the indestructible body broke through, his strength would definitely be much stronger than that of ordinary explorers. Without any hesitation, Han Fei soared into the sky and left. He still had a long, long way to go. The responsibilities on his shoulders were still very heavy. The key was whether old Han and the others were doing this for his own good or not. He had to find a way to jump out of their game. Jiuyin Ling waved her hands at the void, put her hands to her mouth, and shouted, "I'll wait for you to come back." Cough, cough. Han Fei rushed all the way. Compared with the Thousand-Star City, he was much more familiar with the unknown place. Half a day later, Han Fei was running all the way and didn't even need the Wind God boat. His body could devour unlimited energy. The level 9 spiritual heritage could not only absorb energy, but also automatically absorb spiritual energy. Therefore, no matter how he flew now, he no longer had to worry about not having enough spiritual energy or energy. Suddenly, a person appeared in Han Fei's perception. A very familiar person was standing in the void. Shueishenqi. In a few seconds, Han Fei was not far from Shueishenqi. The two looked at each other, and Han Fei grinned. "Senior, were you deliberately waiting for me?" Shueishenqi looked serious and said indifferently, "No one can enter the unknown place without being noticed. It's the same for venerables, let alone you. Han Fei cupped his hands. General, what can I do for you? Shueishenshi was already so cold and solemn, like an iron-blooded god of war. He said straightforwardly, I know where you're going. If it's possible, check out the attitude of the demon plants and confirm how friendly they are towards humans. Han Guanshu pointed in the direction of the 10,000 Demon Valley. If I'm not mistaken, the mysterious royal city is already ready to make trouble. Recently, the battles outside the Scattered Stars Island have become more frequent. For those venerables of the big families in the Thousand Star City, the appearance of king-level corpses may be something they would like to see. After all, it's the corpse of a king-level king. Even the materials on it are extremely precious. Han Fei wondered, why didn't they rob it before? Han Guanshu said indifferently, if they did, they would almost offend everyone in the Thousand Star City. Even they can't afford it. Once they do this, no one from the big families will be able to step out of the Thousand Star City. But if the sea demons attack the island, they will have enough reasons to fight for it in the name of protecting humans. Can you imagine the consequences? The sea monsters are attacking the island, and the humans are not united at all. This is also the reason why I'm on your father's side and gambling with him. Han Fei said solemnly, I know, but I don't know the situation over there, let alone the attitude of the demon plants towards humans. Han Guanshu nodded. It doesn't matter. You can't count on others. Also, in addition to the demon plants, there should be other people over there, but I'm not sure, but you can try to find helpers. If you can become a king, these things should be yours. So, you're the one who should be the most concerned. Han Fei nodded. I see. Goodbye. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1165. Han Fei felt a lot of pressure. The Thousand Star City was not united, and a group of venerables coveted the opportunity to become kings. They didn't care about the life and death of ordinary people. In other words, ordinary people were just tools for the big clans to accumulate wealth and collect resources. In this regard, they were no different from those people in the City of Justice in the Age of Doom. In his mind, a low voice said, Boy, your territory is not big, but you're fighting fiercely. It seems that you have to go to other places to undergo the tribulation. Han Fei snorted. It's none of your business. Don't always think that you're very knowledgeable. Who hasn't been a weakling before? When I succeed in my tribulation, I'll be a strong master. The old turtle despised him. How can an explorer be a strong master? It's just a minor heavenly tribulation. I just took a nap and passed it. What does a minor heavenly tribulation look like? I didn't even see it. Han Fei was even more contemptuous. Stop bragging, keep bragging. Sure enough, the longer you live, the more shameless you are. In the past few years, this old turtle would nag when he was free. As a great devil, very likely to be an emperor-like existence. In the end, he hid in his body and only knew how to brag. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the dry branch trembled. Immediately, he stopped and took out the dry branch. The moment Han Fei took out the dry branch, the tender leaf fell directly. When the leaf fell on the sea, within a radius of a kilometer, a vortex gradually appeared. Some withered yellow roots emerged from the edge of the vortex. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up, and he dived in. After a while, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Large tracts of broadleaf seaweed appeared in Han Fei's vision. Han Fei saw that some fish were leaving quickly, and a big octopus crawled into the gaps of the plant roots. However, there were not many of these creatures, nor were they very strong. He didn't see a single peak-level hanging fisher. Han Fei knew that the leafless tree also paid a heavy price in that battle. More than half of the primitive beings here had perished. Interesting, there used to be a king seal here. Your strength has been suppressed to the level of a peak-level hanging fisher. Han Fei wondered, a king seal? You can feel it? Nonsense. This emperor is a mighty emperor. Even if he's only left with his divine soul, he's still a mighty emperor. Han Fei curled his lips. Go ahead. Right now, you are a prisoner. Was the king seal really that powerful? You can even seal your realm? The old turtle disdainfully said. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. A summer insect cannot speak of ice. A frog in a well cannot speak of the sea. The power of a king is not something you can imagine. One shouldn't try to judge a king with the power of a sovereign. You're not even a venerable now. Han Fei. Han Fei's face was awful. Shut up. Don't interrupt next time. Buzz. At this moment, on the seabed tree next to Han Fei, the old face of the leafless tree appeared in front of Han Fei. You've come? Han Fei smiled and said, Senior Wuya, you're quite fast. It's only been 5 years since I left, right? The leafless tree's face twisted. It's not short. Has there been an expert who has fallen recently? There seems to be a lot more spiritual energy and energy coming in from the outside. Otherwise, I'd have to wait for another year. Han Fei didn't chat with the leafless tree. What he was excited about was whether the third small vine had matured. He was going to pick the peaches now. Senior Wuya, wait a minute. I'll be there soon. 1 day later, Han Fei finally flew slowly to the leafless tree. It should only take him half an incense stick of distance at most, but because of his realm, it took him a full day to arrive. Just then, when the leafless tree saw Han Fei, it said, You're fast. Han Fei rubbed his hands and said, Senior, where's the vine? Han Fei looked at it eagerly, but the leafless tree said slowly, In the earth vein, I can pull it out. However, be careful of the 10,000-year tree demon. The power emanating from that vine is too terrifying. It no longer devours energy and spiritual energy, so it looks very tempting. Han Fei's eyes immediately turned cold. The 10,000-year tree demon? Han Fei immediately remembered that he didn't kill the 10,000-year tree demon, but just snatched its fruit. However, Han Fei didn't care. Don't panic. If the 10,000-year tree demon dares to come out and make trouble, I'll kill it directly. Han Fei was very confident now. With his current strength, if he couldn't even deal with a 10,000-year tree demon, how could he be called a peerless heavenly talent? How could he be qualified to be a king? The leafless tree grunted, and its branches began to shake. The ground was trembling, and there seemed to be roots moving underground. It seemed that the leafless tree also wanted to get rid of the little vine. Over the years, almost half of the energy and spiritual energy in the entire Demon Forest channel had been eaten by the little vine. If this continued for another few decades, the leafless tree wondered if the little vine would suck the entire Demon Forest channel dry. In Han Fei's mind, the old turtle said leisurely, What are you talking about? Why do I feel that except for a little tree demon, I don't feel anything else? Han Fei's face changed slightly. Tree demon, where is it? The old turtle said, About 150 kilometers ahead on the left, isn't that it? It's coming here. Han Fei scanned with his perception, and in an instant, he saw a small thorn that was wriggling forward with the seaweed. Inadvertently, he had traveled a few hundred meters forward. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. How dare it come? Is this thing here to compete with me for the demon refining vine? Was he out of his mind? Han Fei said calmly, Ignore it. Buzz, 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 rumble, the ground trembled more and more violently, and the ground where Han Fei was began to bulge slowly. Before a small emerald green vine emerged from the ground, the old turtle was still wondering, Why can't I perceive it when it's so close? However, when the little vine emerged from the ground, Han Fei heard a roar in his mind. How is it possible? Isn't this already a complete soul-type treasure? Why is there a vine outside? The old turtle began to roar in panic. 2 vines had almost killed it. What would happen if there were 3? Han Fei said angrily, Shut up, I don't have time to kill you. This is my opportunity. If you roar in my head again, believe it or not, I will kill you in minutes. The big turtle shivered. At this moment, Han Fei's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly reached out and grabbed at the air. Clang! It was a red spike that was exceptionally sharp. Han Fei felt the pain of being pricked, and even his palms were bleeding from the pain. Little tree demon, how dare you compete with me? 5 years ago, you were no match for me. 5 years later, do you still want to turn the world upside down? Han Fei directly grabbed the small thorn, and with a thought, the void lines hooked onto the thorn. Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to have hooked a huge soul. Oh my god, I underestimated you. However, it's useless. Get out of here. Let me go. Under the effect of the void lines, this 10,000-year tree demon was still able to resist. It seemed that if it weren't for the restriction of this space, this 10,000-year tree demon wouldn't be weak. However, Han Fei didn't care about it all. The void lines hooked all the thorn, and then Han Fei just ignored it. At this moment, nothing was more important than collecting this small vine. Han Fei's heart was pounding. Han Fei stretched out his palm, and a small green gourd appeared. The two vine leaves swayed slightly, and the third small vine flew over with a swish. When the third small vine was about to combine with the demon purification pot, Han Fei felt his arms shaking and trembling as if a small mountain was pressing down on him. The old face of the leafless tree looked at this scene with a serious expression, and its tree eyes widened as if it was waiting for this scene curiously. At this moment, the most panicked person was the old turtle. The head of this self-proclaimed emperor was shivering in the black fog turtle shell. Gee, when the small vine finally sank into the mouth of the gourd, the green light shone brightly, and the ripples shook. Han Fei felt refreshed, as if he had been doused with a basin of ice water on a summer day. At that moment, Han Fei didn't know if it was an illusion, but he had a feeling that this little gourd was alive. When Han Fei took a closer look and scanned it in his mind, he found that there were no new special functions. Han Fei swallowed. If the functions of the demon purification pot didn't increase, it must have been enhanced. For example, when Han Fei looked at the combat skills again, the text description disappeared. The demon purification pot's current deduction limit has been reached. If deduced again, it will involve the mysteries of heaven and earth and will damage the demon purification pot. Surprisingly, at this moment, the demon purification pot could deduce venerable level combat skills and cultivation methods. Han Fei suddenly felt excited. This little vine had finally returned. The leafless tree next to him, whose face was still in high spirits just now, immediately drooped and let out a long sigh of relief. It's finally gone. Han Fei clenched his hand and took back the demon purification pot. He urgently needed to do one thing. His fourth contractual spiritual beast should be able to be fused, right? The fused creature had been lying in the demon purification pot for a long time. However, Han Fei still glanced at his mind space first and said, "Gourd, suck that turtle to death for me." Han Fei didn't care whether this thing was an emperor or not. What was the big deal about having a terrifying and evil creature living in his body? The old turtle roared, "Bastard, you just said you wouldn't kill me." Han Fei said in surprise, "Can you hear my thoughts?" The old turtle continued to roar, "Of course, your thoughts are spiritual sense. How can I not hear you?" Han Fei shrugged. "What are you roaring for? What are you roaring for? I just wanted to try. See, it's all right." Han Fei thought to himself, "It seems that the demon purification pot is still not obedient. It's a pity that this big turtle is not immortal at first glance." However, Han Fei ignored the roaring turtle and glanced at the 10,000-year tree demon that was controlled by him. "Huh, I'll let you go back then. And now you dare to ruin my plan? Okay, I'm short of soul, so I'll take you first." Second chapter. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1166. Han Fei could feel the plea from the 10,000-year tree demon. If the demonic plant channel hadn't suppressed its strength, Han Fei was almost certain that this guy would be a tough opponent, at least an explorer. However, if they were in the same realm, the 10,000-year tree demon's strength would pale in comparison. He was defeated by Han Fei as soon as they met. Han Fei looked at the leafless tree with a smile and said, "Mr. Tree, wait a moment. Let me collect this guy first." The leafless tree's voice sounded old. "Don't you want to go now? I can open the tunnel now." Han Fei said, "There's no hurry. I still have a few things to do." Han Fei was not in a hurry and sat down cross-legged not far away. The first thing he took out was the embroidery needle. This sea-quelling bizarre treasure hadn't acknowledged him as its master since he had obtained it. Previously, Han Fei felt that he was not strong enough to make it recognize him as its master. However, at this moment, his strength had reached the peak of law enforcer, and his physique was comparable to that of a middle-level explorer. There was no reason why he couldn't recognize him as his master. At this moment, Han Fei saw that half of the rust on the surface of the embroidery needle had peeled off. Come to think of it, he should already have the qualifications to recognize a master. Of course, he didn't dare to be careless. After all, he had almost lost half his life when he refined Snowmorn. When he took out the embroidery needle, he also took out more than 2,000 spiritual fruits in case of accidents. Rip! Han Fei opened his palm with Snowmorn, and blood immediately flowed out. Han Fei was a little surprised. His blood actually showed a trace of faint golden radiance. However, he didn't care too much about it. He held the embroidery needle and said in a low voice, "We're old buddies. You've seen how much my strength has grown. It's not too much for me to recognize him as my master, right? If nothing went wrong, it would only take a few minutes for him to become an explorer. At that time, even with all the resources I have, I can still become a peak explorer. Do you believe me?" In his heart, the old turtle roared, "I'll suck you to death. You're just a peak-level law enforcer. You want to easily subdue a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? How could it be so simple?" As soon as the old turtle said that, Han Fei suddenly felt refreshed, and his essence blood frantically poured into the embroidery needle. Slurp! In just a few breaths, 20% of the blood essence had been consumed. F***CK. I'm already a pinnacle law enforcer. Han Fei's expression changed drastically. His first thought was that Needle's level was higher than Snowmorn's. Otherwise, how could such a scene be created? Buzz! The indestructible body continued to be activated, and more than 1,000 spiritual fruits around Han Fei crumbled. As long as he nurtured vitality and stimulated his chi and blood, would he be afraid that he wouldn't be able to lift a stick? Ka. He saw the rust on the embroidery needle cracking. The actual consumption was not as exaggerated as the old tortoise had said. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't be sucked to death. There were so many spiritual fruits here. In just over 30 breaths, the rust on the body of the embroidery needle had all cracked, revealing its real body. It was an exquisite black staff, and its body was covered with array patterns. It was a pity that the carvings were very fine and did not affect the feel of it at all. The patterns were dark gold in color and didn't look very eye-catching. This kind of color could not cover the black color of the rod itself. When the full appearance of the embroidery needle appeared, Han Fei was shocked. It looked extraordinary. Could it compare to the golden cudgel? The leafless tree said, "What a powerful weapon. It's much stronger than the branch of the 10,000-year tree demon." The old tortoise in Han Fei's body also widened its eyes. What it said just now was just in a fit of anger. The sea-quelling bizarre treasure was strong, but a weapon was a weapon. No matter how strong it was, it couldn't absorb so much of Han Fei's essence blood in the blink of an eye. After all, this was only a master recognition. He hadn't used it to fight yet. After half an hour, Han Fei's face was pale. 1,000 spiritual fruits were obviously not enough, and the vitality of the indestructible body was about to be suppressed. Bam! 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 When the other 1,000 spiritual fruits were shattered again, Han Fei was refreshed again, as if he had been injected with vitality. Half an hour later, Han Fei shattered another 1,000 spiritual fruits, and then he felt the suction force drop sharply. The old tortoise was stunned to see this. The old tortoise cursed in Han Fei's body. "You're so lucky. You brat, where did you get this stick? It's even a war stick commonly used by kings." Huh? Han Fei was shocked. The embroidery needle used by kings? Han Fei was overjoyed. "Old guy, if you had shown your useful side earlier, I wouldn't have to suck you to death. How is it? What do you think of this stick?" Now that his essence blood was consumed less, Han Fei had enough time to chit-chat. The old tortoise snorted heavily. "However, don't be complacent. The sea-quelling bizarre treasure is just a weapon commonly used by kings. It will be very common when you reach the Pioneer Sea state." Han Fei didn't think so. "I'm only a peak-level law enforcer. I'm still far from becoming a king. Now, I have 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures. What do you call this?" "This is called skill," the old tortoise disdainfully said. Even if you recognize them as your master, you can't exert their true strength. The quality of that sword is much worse. When you become an explorer, you can probably use 5% of its strength. As for this stick, forget it. If you don't become a venerable, you can't even use 5% of its strength. Han Fei was stunned. Is it so difficult to use it? No wonder every time I use Snowmorn, it doesn't seem to be very powerful. Apart from not being broken, it doesn't seem to be very different from the power of a divine weapon. It turns out that the other party has the strength, but I can't use it at all. Han Fei couldn't help but say, I still have a secret method to push my strength to the peak. I can't not use 10% of my strength. The old tortoise let out a disdainful voice and mocked. When you meet a real strong opponent, even if you use 10% of your strength, so what? If you can defeat them, you can defeat them without using a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. You can't beat them. Even if you use them, you may not be able to beat them. Han Fei said angrily, Shut up. I'm happy. Why do you care? After consuming a total of more than 3,500 spiritual fruits, Han Fei finally recognized the embroidery needle as its master. It didn't matter how many spiritual fruits he used, because Han Fei still had about 30,000. And this was because the looted resources in the year after the Scattered Stars Island were given to Luo Xiao Bai and the others. These were the spiritual fruits he ate in his dream in the reincarnation mystic realm and consumed countless of them. Otherwise, the amount of resources Han Fei had would have reached a terrifying number. Han Fei picked up the embroidery needle again. Immediately, it felt as light as a feather. Han Fei thought, even if I can't use its full strength, it's enough to hit people. However, when Han Fei wanted to see if there was any information about the embroidery needle, in his eyes, there was still no information. It was the same with Snowmorn. Han Fei couldn't help but take out his blood-drinking knife. Name, blood-drinking knife, introduction, it's made of black, yellow, green iron, blue dragon venomous fangs, grand green essence, wind essence, star clam shell. It can cut divine gold and rare iron. Supplemented by a soul, it can become an ultra-quality divine weapon. Quality, high-quality divine weapon, soul attachment, none, recastable, unrefined, note. Soul attachment is required to show the perfect form. Han Fei's heart did a flip. He didn't need the golden seal very much now. With the law of gravity, the power of his explosion, and the assistance of the array, it was already very painful to hit someone. But the blood-drinking knife was the weapon he was most comfortable with at present, so he could give it a try. Soul attachment. Han Fei didn't care whether this 10,000-year tree demon was willing or not. The demon purification pot appeared and directly sucked the 10,000-year tree demon and the blood-drinking knife into it. Seeing this scene, the old turtle shivered. This gourd can be used like this? Immediately, the old turtle's eyes rolled. It was too terrifying. He knew that the best thing on Han Fei was this gourd, which was far beyond the level of a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Judging from its current power, it might have reached the level of a divine weapon. The old turtle thought for a moment. In the future, he should give this kid some advice occasionally. After all, Han Fei was not completely unable to control the demon purification pot, but his control was not complete. If Han Fei could control it one day, wouldn't he be doomed? As a dignified emperor, if he became the soul of the pot, his fate would be really miserable. After a while, a brand new blood-drinking knife flew out. It looked the same, but the information had changed. Name, blood-drinking knife, introduction, it's made of black, yellow, green iron, blue dragon venomous fangs, grand green essence, wind essence, star clam shell. It can cut divine gold and rare iron. Quality, ultra-quality divine weapon, soul attachment, 10,000-year tree demon effect, armor piercing, void demon sting, recastable, unrefined. Remarks, in the perfect state, when the knife is used, there must be void demon sting accompanying it. Han Fei nodded with satisfaction. Well, not bad. While admiring it, Han Fei seemed to understand something. The level of a sea-quelling bizarre treasure was probably much higher than that of a divine weapon. And the current state of the demon purification pot was obviously not enough to read the information of a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. This meant that there must be other small vines scattered in other places in the demon purification pot. Anyway, Han Fei didn't believe that this was the limit of the demon purification pot. The old turtle said that a sea-quelling bizarre treasure was a king-level weapon. The appearance of the third small vine probably could only deduce things below the king level. If he went any higher, it might really exceed the level of understanding that he could comprehend. After all, Han Fei didn't know how terrifying a king-level weapon was. The Beast King and the Divine Prince were strong enough, right? They could only challenge 2 or 3 peak-level venerables at the same time at most. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Turtle, how many peak-level venerables can a beginner king-level powerhouse defeat?" The old turtle's voice was deep and obviously disdainful. "How many? There's no comparison. No matter how useless a king-level powerhouse is, killing 7 or 8 peak-level venerables is a piece of cake. Even those extremely strong venerables can't be a match for a king-level powerhouse." Han Fei's heart trembled. Sure enough, those below the king level are all ants. No wonder he couldn't see the information of the embroidery needle. It turned out that the gap was too big. The third update, asking for votes. I need to think of new plots. My head is about to explode. Don't rush me these days. Live broadcast at 7 p.m. End of this chapter. Chapter 1167. The leafless tree was a little dumbfounded. The old face seemed to be shocked and looked at Han Fei strangely. Where is the 10,000-year tree demon? Where did it go? Looking at the 10,000-year tree demon's reaction, Han Fei immediately smiled and said, "Uncle Tree, don't think too much. Wait for me a little longer." Then he shouted in a low voice, "Turtle, close your divine senses. I have something secret to do." The big turtle said unhurriedly, "You and I are one now. I know everything you do. I can't seal it." Han Fei gnashed his teeth in anger. They couldn't kill it. If this went on, wouldn't he discover all the secrets of the demon purification pot? Even if he wanted to forge the universe, should he take this guy with him? Thinking of this, Han Fei felt that he was still too weak and had to improve his strength quickly. At that time, even if he couldn't kill this old tortoise, he would have to restrict it in his body or subdue it for his own use. Han Fei said, "Mr. Tree, I'll set up an array. You don't have to watch." With that said, Han Fei stomped, and within 100 meters, circles of complicated lines began to light up. With Wang Han's foundation, he could be said to have reached the level of instantaneous small arrays. A slightly more complicated array would only delay him a little. The leafless tree's old face didn't show any curiosity. After all, he was just a guardian. At this moment, Han Fei looked a bit nervous. There were many things he needed to do on this trip to Waterwood Heaven. Breaking through to the next realm was just one thing. If there was a chance, he had to let the nine-tailed mantis shrimp grow up faster. If he released the nine-tailed mantis shrimp in the Wind and Rain Village, they might be exposed. But if he didn't release them, they had all reached a bottleneck and could break through at any time. At that time, his battle prowess would increase by leaps and bounds. Also, it had been a long time since he entered the Soul Sea. Contractual spiritual beasts were one thing, but spiritual beasts were the key. The next time he broke through, he would have to think of a way to enter the Soul Sea again. At this moment, 5 legends were lying in the demon purification pot. They were Ghost Eel, legendary. Tree Lobster, legendary. Sky Swimming Falcon, a legendary type. Darkwater Poison Frog, legendary. Wolf of Playfulness, legendary. This was the strongest batch of creatures Han Fei had collected so far. The level of synthesis was even higher than the 9-death soul splitting octopus. With excitement, Han Fei said in his heart, "Fuse." The 5 legendary creatures were shattered in the blink of an eye and absorbed by a dark vortex. Unlike in the past, this time it was a mixture of yellow, black, red, and many other dark colors. A thick and ancient aura surged toward them. Gulp! Han Fei swallowed. This time, it was definitely a ferocious beast. If he could match up to the creatures in the Beast King Valley, he would be satisfied. Not just Han Fei, but even the old turtle was a little surprised. Is this the ancient aura? Amidst their curiosity and anticipation, the light gradually dissipated. Meow meow. Han Fei. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Was I hallucinating? Why did I hear cats meowing? When the mist dissipated, Han Fei's eyes widened. He was dumbfounded. What the hell is that? A dog? Are you King kidding me? What breed is this? Han Fei quickly rubbed his eyes and opened them again, only to find a big blue and black dog. Its tail was like a cloud, and on its back was a pair of blue feather wings that were gradually turning purple. Its head looked very serious and fierce, and its eyes were golden. On each of its 4 legs and front abdomen, there was a yellow flame-shaped pattern. But no matter what it looked like, it couldn't change the fact that it was a dog. At this moment, they stared at each other. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Contractual spiritual pet. Name, Heavenly Hound. Introduction, an ancient exotic species that likes to live in the muddy water and in mountains. It looks like a white dog with a black head, and its voice is changeable. It often uses cat sounds to reduce its sense of threat. The Heavenly Hound has a pair of wings with blue feathers that can twist the void. Its escape technique is extremely fast. It's good at stealth and likes to bully the weak. The Heavenly Hound has the ability to swallow the sky and the sun, but it needs to be stimulated passively. Level 41, Quality, Ancient Exotic, contains spiritual energy. It can swallow unlimited spirits. Food, omnivorous. Prefers meat. Battle skill, Sky Escape. Remarks, childhood Han Fei's eyelids twitched wildly. Heavenly Hound? The one from Erlingshen? Unlimited spirits? This guy is only level 41, but it can swallow unlimited spirits? No wonder it's an ancient exotic species. Han Fei couldn't help but touch his chin. It looks so serious, but it can also passively activate the ability to swallow the sky and the sun. It must be very powerful. But why doesn't it have a battle skill? Logically speaking, with your looks, wouldn't it be a pity if you didn't fight? Immediately, Han Fei thought of something. Does it mean that this guy doesn't need any battle skills? Like the tiger and the Han bear, it can tear the void with its claws? Han Fei nodded secretly. It's possible. However, he was still a little confused. Why did it have to synthesize a dog for a day? How awesome was it? Just from the 4 words, ancient exotic species, it was probably not an ordinary one. Han Fei was slightly startled. Can you talk? Meow, meow. Yes, master. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Can you stop meowing? Only cats meow like that. Meow. Han Fei. For some reason, Han Fei always felt that the way this dog looked at him seemed a little abnormal. Why was there a sharp gleam in its eyes? Chilu. The next moment, Han Fei was dumbfounded. The dignified Heavenly Hound rushed to him and rubbed his hand crazily with its head. Han Fei was shocked. You're a Heavenly Hound. You look so serious. Can't you show some of the temperament of a dignified Heavenly Hound? Huh? Suddenly, Han Fei felt something sticky on his hand and saw that this guy was licking his hand crazily. F***CK. Are you a pervert? Can you be a serious Heavenly Hound? Even if you can't be a Heavenly Hound, don't be a bootlicker. Han Fei hurriedly raised his hand and pushed the Heavenly Hound's head away. Don't move. The Heavenly Hound squatted on the ground and looked at Han Fei with glittering eyes. These eyes were originally golden. They were really made of titanium alloy dog eyes. It turned out that this thing really existed. Han Fei kept a straight face and thought to himself, the first contact with a contractual spiritual beast is still the same as before. As long as I feed it again and again, the effect will definitely be extraordinary. Han Fei asked, Are you hungry? The Heavenly Hound nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes. Han Fei grunted and took out a hungong fish. The flesh of this fish was tough, and dogs usually like meaty fish. A hungong fish was more than 20 meters long. Han Fei decided to observe the Heavenly Hound carefully when it was eating. Han Fei waved his hand and threw the hungong fish to the ground. However, in the next moment, a huge dog had appeared. Good heavens, with a baji, the fish was gone. F***CK. Han Fei's hands trembled. That's it. However, Han Fei didn't panic. The heavenly hound was not the only one with a big mouth. Little Black and Little White also had big mouths, but Lurinquang's sky swallowing technique had even bigger mouths. This was a heavenly hound. It was a divine dog owned by Erlang Shun. It would be abnormal if its mouth was small. Han Fei thought for a moment. Do you still want to eat it? Meow, meow. Yes. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. You're not a F** king cat. Where did you learn to meow? Han Fei thought to himself. They're all omnivores anyway. In an instant, big crabs, big conches, and big lobsters were thrown out. Anyway, these creatures were not of much use to him now. With a level 9 spiritual heritage, he didn't need such messy creatures to occupy the space and forge the universe. Of course, he kept the delicious ones for himself. If they were not delicious, he would feed them to the heavenly hound. Baji, Baji. At this moment, Han Fei saw it clearly. The heavenly hound seemed to be eating like Lurinquang's sky swallowing technique. As soon as it opened its mouth, a black hole was formed, and then those creatures were sucked into its mouth. Han Fei muttered, if it's so good at eating, it must be good at fighting too. Han Fei had been curious. How could a synthesized creature talk? Where did its memory come from? Immediately, Han Fei said, Heavenly Hound, why can you talk? The heavenly hound rushed to Han Fei's hand and rubbed against it. I can only talk. Han Fei pushed the dog's head away, thinking, maybe the demon purification pot is too magical, similar to genetic engineering or something. It extracts the characteristics of different creatures and then creates a new species. Han Fei immediately waved his hand and removed the big array. However, the heavenly hound directly bit the corner of Han Fei's clothes. You still want to eat? Han Fei was stunned. You still want to eat? You've eaten 8 creatures. Aren't you afraid of being stuffed to death? Han Fei was a little speechless. It was reasonable to say that these creatures contained a lot of energy and spiritual energy. Even if the heavenly hound was an ancient mutant, there should be a limit, right? Otherwise, if this guy kept eating, wouldn't he be unable to raise it? Would he have to catch fish for it every day? Thinking of this, Han Fei immediately said, no more. Get lost. The old voice of the leafless tree said, what kind of creature is this? In an instant, a bolt of lightning rushed to the leafless tree with a swish, licked the tree with its big tongue, and then rubbed it with its head. The leafless tree's old face twisted. What is this? Go away, it's itchy. Han Fei didn't know what to say. What the F***CK? You're just a licker. Do you know me? Why did you lick me? Han Fei shouted, Licker, shut up. Hearing this, the heavenly hound thought Han Fei was calling it. With a swish, it turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed towards Han Fei again. Come back. With a thought, the center of Han Fei's eyebrows flashed. The heavenly hound failed and turned into a blue light, rushing into Han Fei's body. What the hell is this? Can't there be a normal creature? In Han Fei's body, the old turtle didn't speak. If Han Fei were in his sea of consciousness at this moment, he would definitely see the old turtle looking uncertain. The old turtle thought to himself, why can I still see this damned creature? The first chapter, asking for votes. Heavenly Hound, modified according to the classic of mountains and seas. End of this chapter. Chapter 1168. What was the Shuimu heaven like? Han Fei knew nothing about it. However, since old Han had set up this trap many years ago and asked him to go, he either had confidence in himself or the Shuimu heaven. They were both immortal palaces. If there were no accidents, there should be a king-class powerhouse in the Shuimu heaven. After going through the age of chaos, although he didn't see a king, the Beast King was the one most likely to become a king. Did he become a king in the end? However, as far as Han Fei knew, during the age of chaos, the king was actually not in the City of Justice, and his strength could only limit him to go to the City of Justice and the 100,000 Mountains. He couldn't explore the further worlds at all. Then, in this world, the Yin-Yang heaven was special and attracted the eye of the heavenly path, so there was no king here. What about the Shuimu heaven? The eye of the heavenly path couldn't also be looking there, right? At this time, Han Fei really wanted to ask, if the Yin-Yang heaven and the Shuemu heaven are so close, wouldn't it be easy for a venerable to cross 8 million kilometers of the sea? In fact, even an explorer would be able to find the Shuemu sky if they spent some time. He hadn't considered this question before, but now no one could ask. Han Fei looked at the leafless tree and said, "Senior tree, will you come with me?" The leafless tree's old face shook a few times. "I also want to go out, but I still need to guard this place for the time being. After you go out, give my branch to the Life Queen. Her Majesty will arrange a new guardian to come in. At that time, I can go out." Han Fei said in surprise, "The Life Queen?" The leafless tree said in a trembling voice, "You will know when you meet her. I'm going to open the channel now. Remember, with my strength, I can only open the channel for 10 seconds. Once you miss it, you'll have to wait for another year." Han Fei was slightly shocked. Open it. Not to mention 10 seconds, the channel only needed to be open for 1 second, and he would have enough time to go over. On an extremely thick tree trunk, in front of a large tree stump covered with yellow wrinkles, a group of handsome boys and girls were gathered in a circle. And if one took a closer look, one would find that there were not only boys and girls here, but also birds listening on the branches. There were also strange insects crawling on the leaves. In the surroundings, there were lush branches and leaves swaying as if they were also listening. The reason was that there was a thick book in front of the withered tree stump. At this moment, it was spread out. An old and withered branch was shaking slightly, flipping through a book. If one took a closer look, how was this a tree stump? He had the shape of a human torso, but his legs were thicker and his feet were bigger. Its feet were round wooden stakes, and there were roots on the tree trunk. The upper body of the tree stump and its arms were in the shape of human hands. Only there would always be a few twigs sticking out of the trunk here and there, and occasionally 1 or 2 leaves would hang from the twigs. His head was more like a human. Other than eyebrows, ears, and nose, it had everything else. His eyes were especially big, and he could even see his thick double eyelids. Whoa, there is no hair. There was a yellowish-green branch on top of the Trent's head. It looked like a weed. At this moment, the Trent's old voice was slowly narrating. In ancient times, there was a place called land in this world. There were people, flowers, trees, insects, birds, beasts, rivers. However, it encountered the Age of Doom, and the ferocious Sea Clan swept across the land. Our Monster Plant Clan joined forces with the Beast Clan, the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan, the Mountain Giants, the Giant King's Court, the human race, a total of more than 300 races, to fight against the enemy together. In that battle, living beings were plunged into misery and suffering, and races were destroyed one after another. However, a few races survived with difficulty. Okay, now let's ask, which race is the strongest? Immediately, a tender tree face appeared in the lush branches and leaves. I know. The Monster Plant Clan is the strongest, and the Life Queen has blessed all living beings. A big round insect with 2 antennae on its head said unwillingly, "Our insect clan is tied for first place. Legend has it that the insect queen carried the sea for millions of miles, and no sea demon dared to set foot in the insect realm." A little red sparrow said, "Our sky clan is tied for first place. Our ancestor, the great Kuan, swallowed billions of sea demons." The group of handsome young men and girls in front of the old tree said, "Grandpa Tree, what about our human race? Does our human race have a supreme expert?" A young man's eyes showed a sense of loss. Other races had the Insect Queen, the Great Kuan, and the Life Queen. Didn't they have peerless experts? The old tree laughed. "Don't worry, human race. Of course, there are also experts. Human race experts have a lot of honorific titles. In the history of the human race, there was a human king. On the other side of our waterwood heaven, in the yin-yang heaven, it is said that the strongest human there is called the Sea God." A girl said in surprise, "Sea God sounds so unpleasant. It sounds like the Sea Clan." The red sparrow said, "The human king ran away. The human king ran away on a big ship. Otherwise, he would definitely have an honorific title." A young man snorted. "The human king didn't run away. He just wanted to find a new place to live." A fat worm said, "Yes, he ran away. If the human king didn't run away, we would definitely be able to defeat the Sea Clan." For a moment, there was a lot of chatter, and it became a noisy mess. A little trance said, "Grandpa Tree, what about the sea god on the other side of Waterwood Heaven? Did he run away too?" Immediately, the surroundings quietened down. Everyone was full of curiosity. The old trant laughed. "I don't think so. There, the passage I am guarding is said to lead to the sea god's domain. However, it has been sealed for too long. I heard that the sea god there is very powerful. He conquered a large territory and settled hundreds of millions of humans." "Wow," a young man said excitedly. "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The human race also has experts. They're just next door." The fat worm snorted. Then, why haven't we seen them before?" The red sparrow said, "I heard from Grandpa that someone came here before." "Grandpa Tree, did someone come here before?" The old trant laughed. "Someone came, but he left very quickly. This is all in the past. No one knows why he came here." A young man said, "Grandpa Tree, then why don't we open the passage and let them come over?" The old trant's aged voice rang out. "Because there is a war over there too. It is said that the battle is very fierce. When the passage was sealed, it was said that all the kings took action, and the repercussions were too great. Therefore, the passage between the two sides was cut off." A little trant said regretfully, "Then we will also fight. But I have never heard of the Life Queen fighting." The old trant laughed so hard that the branches on his body shook. "Because we have the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. Besides, what kind of expert is the Life Queen? Will you little brats know that the Life Queen has taken action?" "Ah!" All of a sudden, Hong Ker shrieked. The fat worm snorted. "What are you screaming for?" "Ow, ow, ow!" A human girl pointed at the tree trunk not far behind the old trant in surprise. There, a dense light lit up. Grandpa Tree, the door is open." The old trant let out a cry of surprise. The face that was facing the youths disappeared and then reappeared behind him. At this moment, he also stared in surprise at the teleportation array that hadn't been opened for many years. "Huh." As soon as Han Fei came out of the teleportation array, he saw a group of strange creatures looking at him. A red bird was squawking, a fat meat worm was howling, and a group of little trants were shaking their branches with their eyes wide open. There was even an old trant that looked almost as old as the leafless tree. At that time, Han Fei's eyes immediately fell on a group of young boys and girls. F*CK, so beautiful? Han Fei was shocked. In the past, he thought Zhang Xuanyu was already very handsome. He had never seen anyone more handsome than Zhang Xuanyu in his life. Even Diwu Haiguang felt that he was a little inferior. However, now he saw a group of people who were almost as handsome as Zhang Xuanyu, and a group of children. Besides, he had seen a lot of beauties, such as the Xiaoyu's girl-next-door type, Xia Xiaochan's sassy girlfriend type, Zhou Yinling's gentle and cute type, and Shimin Linglin's domineering style. Oh my God, now this group of little girls in front of him all seemed to have come out of a painting. They were all top-notch in terms of appearance, but he couldn't tell what type they were. They were all very small and fresh. While Han Fei was in a daze, he heard the opposite side already crying. "Grandpa Tree, is this the person next door? He is so ugly." "Ah, Grandpa Tree, are the humans on the other side also ugly? Then I don't want to go to the other side. This person looks so rough." "Grandpa Tree, is he a strong master?" The fat worm howled. "Grandpa Tree, is this a human? Can a human look like this?" At that time, Han Fei didn't feel good. What do you mean? What do you mean? Although I'm not handsome, elegant, or elegant, I have good facial features and am very domineering, right? Even if you don't give me 100 points, you should at least give me 80 points, right? F*CK, why do I have to be ugly? The old tree man scolded slowly. "Don't be rude. Don't judge other people's flaws. This will cause a heavy blow to other people's hearts." Han Fei was speechless. "Wait, Grandpa Tree, are you helping me? Or are you insulting me?" The old tree man said amiably, "Guest, are you from the Yin Yang Heaven? Planning the plot? Only 2 chapters today. Chapter 1169. Cough, cough, cough. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't argue with a group of children. He immediately nodded to the old tree man. I'm Han Fei from the Yin Heaven. Although Han Fei was surprised by this scene, he didn't panic at all. After all, the scene in front of him seemed quite harmonious, not as horrible as he imagined. Before coming here, Han Fei thought that this place would be as vast and boundless as the seaborne grassland. He thought that the people here also lived on the floating island. But now, Han Fei's perception swept subconsciously, and then he was completely shocked. He was shocked to find that everywhere his perception swept, there were only branches. Hiss! What a big tree! Where's the trunk? Yes, Han Fei's perception could reach thousands of kilometers, but he couldn't sense where the trunk of this tree was. On the contrary, when Han Fei released his perception swept back. Someone shouted in a low voice, "Huh, where did this human boy come from?" A big spider covered with eyes suddenly opened all its eyes and aimed at where Han Fei was. 100-meter-long giant python, wrapped around a tree trunk, stuck out its tongue and looked at Han Fei with a pair of eyes that seemed to be able to penetrate the space. And in the giant bird's nest in the bushes, a big fiery red bird chirped and directly shattered Han Fei's perception. At that moment, Han Fei was stunned. "Where am I?" The old tree man said leisurely, "Sir, it's very impolite to perceive other people's living area at will." Han Fei cupped his hands and smiled awkwardly. "Sorry, I'm new here. Please forgive me, senior." Seeing that Han Fei withdrew his perception, the old tree man didn't care very much. Instead, he said leisurely, "Has Leafless died of old age?" "Leafless? The leafless tree?" Han Fei replied, "Senior Leafless Tree is fine now, but he only has 3 branches left." With that said, Han Fei took out the branch that Leafless gave him and said, "I wonder if I can see the Life Queen?" Although Han Fei didn't know what kind of existence the Life Queen mentioned by the Leafless Tree was, since she could be called a queen, she was definitely the strongest of the strong. It was very likely that she was the current palace master of the Waterwood Heaven, a real king. The old treant stretched out a vine and took the branch from Han Fei's hand. On a small branch next door, the fiery red bird said in a delicate voice, "Humans over there, did you win the fight over there? Why can you come here? Why can't we go through?" A young girl said, "Big brother, will the humans over there come over?" Hearing this, Han Fei smiled. The other side is still fighting, so they won't come. Right now, a great war is about to break out between humans and sea demons in Yin Heaven. Han Kei seemed a little disappointed. "So you're also fighting a war?" Han Fei frowned. "What's going on? Are you saying that there's a war here too?" The old treant was dignified. Suddenly, he said, "It's a leafless branch. However, human, if you're here to ask for help, don't open your mouth." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. She had directly rejected him. The reason why Shueishenshi stopped him on the road might be because he wanted him to ask for help. Although Shueishenshi didn't say it, if Han Fei thought of himself as the Lord of Yin Heaven, he would probably put forward this idea after finding out the Shumu Heaven's attitude. However, Han Fei shook his head and said lightly, "I'm not here to ask for help. I'm here to look for a tribulation in the Shuemu Heaven." "Oh." The old treant was slightly taken aback. "Tribulation? Wow, the fat bug bust. Tribulation? Are you going to become an explorer?" A teenager said in surprise. "Are you already a peak level law enforcer?" A little treant was stunned. "You don't look very old. The creatures over there don't have the Life Queen's grace, and they don't look good-looking. How can they be so powerful?" The old treant shouted softly, "Be quiet." After the children settled down, the old treant took out a wooden sign that emitted a faint green glow and said, "Red Falcon, please come here." The old treant said, "Sir, please wait a moment. There's still some free time. If you don't mind, can you tell the children about Yin Heaven?" Han Fei's heart did a flip. Now that he didn't know who the enemy was, he couldn't reveal too much information. Han Fei's eyes flickered and he grinned. Of course. Immediately, the group of boys and girls, Little Red Sparrow, the little treant, and the bug all fell silent and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei smiled and said, "There are not as many races in Yin Yang Heaven as in the Shumu Heaven. In Yin Yang Heaven, there are only humans." "Wow, are they all humans?" a little girl exclaimed, as if this was a very magical thing. A teenager's eyes widened. "Are the cloud sea divine trees in Yin Yang Heaven all humans?" Han Fei's heart did a flip. Cloud sea divine tree? So, the place where he was now was a big tree called the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. The old trant trembled its branches and leaves and said, "Be quiet and listen to the guests lecture carefully." The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. "What do you mean by a lecture? Did I become a lecturer as soon as I came here?" Han Fei smiled helplessly and said lightly, "In Yin Yang Heaven, there are no cloud sea divine trees. Human beings all live in the air, and there are big floating islands flying above the sky. Humans have to take fishing boats and fly into the sea." Little Red Sparrow cried. "I know, it's the big floating stone island in the story. It turns out that it really exists." Han Fei was puzzled again. It seems that there are no floating islands here. But why do these people know about floating islands? And what kind of existence is this Cloud Sea Divine Tree? Han Fei said tentatively, "Yin Yang Heaven has a floating giant city, the Thousand Star City. The Thousand Star City has 36 major towns, each of which has a radius of thousands of kilometers. Each town has 8 villages under its jurisdiction, which are also made up of floating islands. It's a very large scale, huh?" Han Fei felt that he should take a look at the size of Yin Yang Heaven. Such a large city, so many towns, and so many villages, it shows that the human race is strong. However, before Han Fei could be proud, he heard the fat bug exclaim, "Yin Yang Heaven is so small." The group of boys and girls also nodded. "Yes, big brother, why is Yin Yang Heaven so small? Was it beaten by the Sea Clan and reduced to such a small size?" "Small?" Han Fei was stunned. "Are you not afraid of being bitten by the wind? You call this small?" The old tree man said leisurely, "Don't be noisy. Listen to the guest." Han Fei asked in a daze, "Wait, senior, is the water with heaven very large?" A little tree said, "It used to be very big, but now it has become small. The coverage of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree is less than 500,000 kilometers." "Pooh!" Han Fei staggered. F*CKU. What's the meaning of this? What do you mean by less than 500,000 kilometers? Han Fei couldn't help but raise his head and look around. His heart skipped a beat. "Is this tree so big?" A girl said, 490,000 kilometers is equivalent to 500,000 kilometers. Han Fei almost fainted. F*CK. What kind of tree is this? A coverage of 490,000 kilometers? Do you really want to grow into space? No. Han Fei felt that this situation was very wrong. Although a tree could cover a large area, it also meant that the tree had to be very tall. Han Fei's perception had just swept 1,000 kilometers, but he didn't even see the top of the tree. What did this mean? The sky was very high. Besides, the Cloud Sea Divine Tree couldn't only be 1,000 kilometers high. According to this theory, it should be at least tens of thousands of kilometers high. Just how big was this world? Luo Xiaobai said that she saw a tree tens of thousands of meters high. If Luo Xiaobai came to the water with heaven and heard about the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, what would her reaction be? Cough, cough. Han Fei coughed and said, "Only the human race lives here. Why do we need such a big place? Let's talk about battles. There are many strong human beings. For example, a few years ago, I just participated in the battle between humans and sea demons. I sent out more than 5,000 hidden fishers, hundreds of law enforcers, dozens of explorers, and even venerables. It can be seen that human beings have been fighting fiercely and never stopped." A little tree man exclaimed, "Then this battle is quite a big one. Just like our extreme battlefield, there is a battle every year with countless deaths and injuries." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Every year? F*CK, kid, are you kidding me? If we fight every year, won't all the people be killed?" However, Han Fei couldn't disgrace his own race. Immediately, Han Fei sighed gloomily, and a trace of pity appeared in his eyes. Exactly. Not long ago, there was another battle. More than 10 venerables were sent out, including peak-level venerables. Of course, Han Fei didn't dare to say that this was a human civil war. However, at least it could show that there were still many strong masters in the Yin-Yang heaven. Wow! This time, the old tree man was a little shocked. Even peak-level venerables were sent out? It seems that the battle on the Yin-Yang heaven is very fierce. It's been many years since there has been such a battle in the Shuimu heaven. Little Red said, "Venerables don't move. We only have 72 in total. They're very precious." Cough. Han Fei blacked out. How many venerables? 72. Han Fei didn't feel good. From this moment on, he needed to make one thing clear. He must not let the people here know the situation on the Yin-Yang heaven. Damn it, it's hard enough to deal with a big family in the Thousand-Star City. If the people here knew that there were no more kings in the Yin-Yang heaven, they might have other ideas. There were 72 venerables. If 72 venerables attacked together, they could destroy the Thousand-Star City in minutes. At this moment, not far away, there was a flash of light, and a red giant falcon appeared with a swish. Han Fei immediately breathed a sigh of relief. That's great. I can't boast anymore. It's too king scary. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1170. Unlike those creatures who were obviously still children, Han Fei could tell that this red falcon was an intermediate explorer the moment it appeared. When he was in the 100,000 Mountains, Han Fei had seen a lot of sky creatures. This red falcon, also known as the red life falcon, was one of the few fire tribute birds. Their strength was very balanced, their bodies were not weak, their claws were sharp, and their beaks were comparable to high-quality divine weapons. When the red falcon saw Han Fei, it tilted its head. "Senior Thousandwood, where did you come from?" The old Trant shook the treetop on its head and said in an old voice, "Leafless, let me come here alone. I'm not here to ask for help." The red falcon looked at Han Fei for a while. "A peak-level law enforcer. You shouldn't be slow. In that case, come with me. It's a long way, but can I meet the queen?" "I'm not sure." Han Fei nodded with a smile, thinking, "Can I meet the king directly? I don't know if old Han has left any backup plans here. But in any case, the creatures of the Waterwood Heaven don't seem to have a bad attitude towards me. At least, they aren't hostile." Han Fei cupped his hands at the old Trant. "Senior, I'll take my leave first." A boy shouted, "Big brother, will you come back?" Han Fei smiled. "Maybe." Swish. The red falcon directly flew out, not stopping for even a moment, heading straight for the sky. In the blink of an eye, it passed through the obstacles of branches. Huh? On purpose? Han Fei saw that this red falcon came on a teleportation array. Besides, the red life falcon was obviously not the fastest among the sky creatures. However, all falcon-type creatures were not slow in their flying speed. Han Fei smiled. "Let's compete then." Swish! The phantom glass wings spread out, and before the teenagers were surprised, Han Fei disappeared with a swish. The red falcon only intended to test Han Fei. After all, Han Fei came with the token of the leafless tree and was considered a guest. However, not every guest could meet the real master of the Waterwood Heaven. This boy was a peak-level law enforcer and was too weak. If he couldn't even pass Han Fei's test, how could he meet the Life Queen? However, the moment Han Fei unfolded the phantom glass wings, the red falcon was slightly surprised. Could humans have wings too? Below, the youths in Hong Kei-er were astonished. "Grandpa Tree, he has wings. That person has wings." Hong Kei-er screamed. "Grandpa Tree, that Han Fei is so fast." The old Trent's eyebrows twitched as he laughed out loud. If he didn't have any strength, how could he have come to the Waterwood sky from the Yin-Yang heaven? All right, let's get back to class. Where were we? Kestrel was stunned. This human was so fast. He was clearly only at the peak of the law enforcer level. Although he had only used 30% of his speed, it was still not something a human could compare to. At this moment, Han Fei followed the red falcon with a smile about 2 or 3 meters behind, seemingly at ease. Humph! I want to see how fast you are. The red falcon continued to accelerate, directly reducing its speed to 50%, like a red beam of light rushing into the sky. Moreover, there were tree trunk barriers along the way. At such a high speed, it was almost impossible for an ordinary person to catch up. However, the next moment, the red falcon was surprised to find that Han Fei was still 2 or 3 meters behind it. At this moment, the red falcon stopped underestimating him. After all, in the endless years, there were only a handful of people who could come to the waterwood sky from the yin-yang heaven. It was almost impossible for a non-peerless heavenly talent to do so. Since this human was here, he must have some skills. The red falcon accelerated all the way. 60%, 70%, 80%. When a red falcon reached its maximum speed, it realized that Han Fei was still able to keep up with it. It sighed. Is this the peak of Law Enforcer? Besides, the red falcon found that Han Fei's eyes were darting around. At such a high speed, he still had time to observe the surrounding environment, and Han Fei was no less surprised than the red falcon. He was surprised because this cloud sea divine tree was too tall. There were really a lot of creatures living on this tree. He saw legendary big spiders hanging in the air, giant moths lying on the branches, and some branches were so thick that there were even many tree houses built on them. Of course, when the red falcon and Han Fei were rushing at full speed, many creatures cast their senses at them. A giant python was surprised. Human beings? How can there be such ugly human beings? A big centipede, supporting its body, muttered, Are they sick? They are all explorers. Why are they still flying? If they don't take the teleportation array, they can just tear the void. Han Fei also looked at a human powerhouse. He found that the adult woman, with long hair tied up, wearing a green battle suit, holding a longbow in her hand, was also looking at him. At this moment, the red falcon said to Han Fei via voice transmission, Boy, can you go faster? Han Fei smiled. I think so. The red falcon asked, Can you also tear the void? Han Fei thought for a moment and nodded slightly. He could tear the void, but that was different from the heavenly void divine walking technique. At the moment of tearing the void, his speed would be slower than that of a real explorer. If it was in a battle, it was not suitable to use. Besides, the way the two entered the void was different. The explorer directly tore the void, while Han Fei relied on speed to find the weak point of the void and penetrate it. These were two completely different concepts. The red falcon roared, Tear the void with me. Chilla. The red falcon disappeared, but Han Fei didn't panic. The heavenly void divine walking technique was different from tearing the void. He could capture some changes in the void, but tearing the void didn't care about these changes. Chilla. In the darkness, Han Fei was only a little slower than the red falcon, but this little distance might actually be more than 500 kilometers away. Therefore, Han Fei activated the agility of wind. Swish! Seeing that Han Fei really caught up, the red falcon immediately confirmed Han Fei's strength. As a peak-level law enforcer, he was so fast that he could tear the void. No human from the waterwood heaven could do that. The red falcon thought to himself, Sure enough, those who can come from the yin-yang heaven are not ordinary people. In this case, I'd better take him to see the king. In fact, the explorers tearing the void was not omnipotent. When they walked in the dark void, they actually just set a target point for themselves. Before reaching this target point, they couldn't observe the real situation in the outside world. But if it was a chase, they could set the target as the target point and appear with the target. At the moment they appeared, they could choose whether to go out or not. If the outside world was dangerous, they could continue to walk in the void. Of course, Han Fei felt that this rule might not apply when they reached the peak-level explorer level. At that level, they were much stronger than ordinary advanced explorers, and it was possible that they could see the outside world in the dark void. About half an hour later, the red falcon said, Get ready to go out. Swish! Swish! The red falcon stopped in the void. At that moment, the red falcon's sharp claws tore the void, and a flash of white light appeared. Han Fei's eyes flickered slightly. He rarely entered the void, so when he saw the Red Falcon's operation, he had some experience. Condensing all the power in one point, then vibrating and tearing the void in the vibration. Han Fei looked as casual as usual, as if he had known it a long time ago. The Red Falcon glanced at him. "Let's go out." Swish, swish. The moment Han Fei appeared in the void, several perceptions swept over him. Han Fei was shocked. A venerable? He was too familiar with this feeling. When a venerable's perceptions swept over, there would inevitably be a sense of threat and oppression. On the contrary, even peak-level explorers didn't give Han Fei such a strong feeling. When Han Fei looked around, he found that he seemed to have appeared in a square. If it weren't for the wooden branches under his feet, he would have wondered if he had arrived on land. In front of Han Fei, the most visually shocking thing was a skyscraping wall that he couldn't see the end of at a glance. Looking up, he found that there seemed to be a roof at an extremely high place. Wow, the trunk? Han Fei's eyes moved slightly. This could only be the trunk. It looked like a King City wall, and the thing above his head was probably the other branches. On the trunk, there were complicated array patterns engraved. Han Fei certainly recognized that it was a teleportation array. The Red Falcon said softly, "Venerable, an envoy from the Yin-Yang heaven, holding a leafless wood, requests to see Her Majesty." In front of the teleportation array, a big golden bird appeared. Wait. Han Fei's pupils constricted. That's not a bird, but a bat? The bat didn't show much of its body, but it folded its wings and turned into a human form, a cold man in a golden battle suit. However, the cold man's eyes were covered with a golden mask, giving off an extremely cold feeling. Wait, Chilla. The Venerable didn't move at all. He turned around and stepped into the teleportation array. Han Fei was a little surprised. Isn't tearing the void faster than a teleportation array? The Red Falcon said, "Although the Divine Palace is indeed on the top of the cloud sea divine tree, since you are from the Yin-Yang heaven, you should know that the Divine Palace is in a space crack. It can't be seen in the real world." Han Fei realized that the Divine Palace turned out to be built in a space crack. No wonder so many people couldn't find it. Immediately, an idea came to him. I know. I'm just surprised that this senior can turn into a human form. Seeing that Han Fei was surprised, the Red Falcon immediately said, "It seems that there are no other races in the Yin-Yang heaven. When you reach the realm of a venerable, it's up to you whether you can turn into a human or not. It's not difficult to find a way to turn into a human." Han Fei was a little shocked. No wonder he saw the water fairy and the heavenly crystal in 100,000 mountains in human form. So that's how it is. Sure enough, the stronger one was, the more means he could master. A venerable could be reborn from a single drop of blood. This method was no less powerful than Little Fatty's resurrection method. The two of them waited here for half an hour. The teleportation array flashed slightly. The venerable bat looked at Han Fei carefully and said leisurely, "Her Majesty said yes." Chapter 1171. Han Fei couldn't help but be a little excited. The Immortal Palace. This was the place that countless strong masters in the Thousand-Star City dreamed of entering. And he had the opportunity to go in just because he crossed the demonic plant channel and came to the water with heaven. The venerable bat looked at Han Fei. "What's your name?" Han Fei cupped his hands. "Han Fei." The red sparrow tilted her head and looked at Han Fei unkindly. "How can I not revere the venerable?" Han Fei smiled. "I'm on the invincible path. I can be polite, but I really can't bring myself to call the venerable Batmaster." The venerable bat didn't seem to care. "Go in. It doesn't matter to me, but you need to revere the queen. You can't underestimate a king." Han Fei smiled and nodded. Han Fei walked past the venerable, took a deep breath, and stepped in without hesitation. After Han Fei went in, the red sparrow said, "Master, this person," the venerable bat said lightly, "this person is extraordinary. The real strong have always been proud. Don't take him seriously." In Han Fei's opinion, the 36 immortal palaces were built at the same time, but they were divided and ruled by the strong. Therefore, as long as he saw the Waterwood Immortal Palace, he should be able to know what the Yin-Yang Palace looked like. Swish! Han Fei's body rushed forward slightly, as if he was pushed forward by a gentle force. He glanced back subconsciously and found no one. It should be the power of the teleportation array itself. Huh. The moment Han Fei came in, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The spiritual energy was abnormal. As a spirit gatherer, he could easily feel the abnormal fluctuations of spiritual energy. However, the Immortal Palace was too abnormal. To put it bluntly, the density of spiritual energy in the tree heaven was higher than that in the yin-yang heaven, probably because of the cloud sea divine tree. But it wasn't much higher. There was no such thing as a possibility of it being several times higher. But the moment Han Fei entered the Immortal Palace, the level 9 spiritual heritage automatically began to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy, and many spiritual energy vortexes appeared around him. Wow, it's at least 10 times more than the outside world. Han Fei was shocked. That was F***king unbelievable. What kind of concept was this? Even if a person didn't cultivate here, just by breathing here, their strength would increase gradually. Sensing the difference of spiritual energy, Han Fei looked around. Han Fei found that there were all kinds of spiritual herbs and orchards here. He casually looked around and saw a spirit fruit. Information appeared in his eyes. Name, Fruit of Agility, Introduction. It grows in a place with extremely dense spiritual energy. It has the magical effect of improving one's physique, lightening one's body, and increasing one's speed. Level, Heaven, Quality, Low grade, contains spiritual energy greater than 556,000 points. Effect, directly consuming it will increase a large amount of spiritual energy and contain a small amount of chaotic energy. It cannot be consumed by those below the Law Enforcer realm, and it is ineffective for those above the Supremacy realm. It can be consumed repeatedly. Han Fei's eyes widened. A heaven-level spiritual fruit could be eaten repeatedly? The water deity had once told him about the agility fruit. She said that it was extremely difficult for this fruit to grow and that its various effects were secondary. Its main effect was that strand of primal chaos energy, which was effective even for supremacies. And Han Fei saw 7 or 8 such spiritual fruits as he glanced around. In addition to this spiritual fruit, there were all kinds of other fruits. For example, Han Fei saw an old ginseng, which was originally above the ground, but seemed to have sensed Han Fei's arrival and drilled into the ground with a swish. Han Fei looked around, only to find that he was in a super large orchard. At the center of this large orchard, there was a luxuriant tree, which was extremely thick. The branches and vines in front of the tree were either twisted into pillars or hanging from the sky. While Han Fei was in a daze, he saw a young girl in a colorful dress stride to him in a few steps. The girl suddenly blinked her eyes and looked at Han Fei curiously. Han Fei couldn't sense any pressure from girl. She was just like an ordinary person, so he couldn't help but ask tentatively, "Queen, life?" "Poochie." The girl couldn't help but laugh. Then she quickly pursed her lips and said meticulously, "Sir, I'm just the maid of Her Majesty. Sir, please come with me." She came quickly, but she didn't leave quickly. The big tree seemed to be not far away, but when Han Fei really started walking, he found that there was something wrong with this part of the journey. It seemed that there was a spatial law attached to him, and there was a technique that lengthened the walking process. The girl glanced at Han Fei. "Sir, are you from the yin-yang heaven?" Han Fei nodded with a smile. "Yes." The girl asked again, "Has the heavenly Dharma eye of the yin-yang heaven disappeared?" Han Fei's face suddenly changed slightly, and he looked at the girl. Did she know that the yin-yang heaven was now being monitored by the heavenly Dharma eye? The girl said with a smile, "Others may not know, but this is the Waterwood Immortal Palace. Her Majesty knows everything. Jinger, don't talk too much. Turn the world's in-near-hand array around." Suddenly, Han Fei heard a particularly gentle voice. The voice was very soft. Just from her voice, Han Fei felt that this life queen should be a very gentle queen. The girl called Jing stuck out her tongue slightly and waved her hand gently. Han Fei keenly sensed that the space seemed to have changed. Sure enough, this step took him a long way, and Han Fei keenly sensed that some soil on the roadside was trembling slightly. Everything is entering the array? Huh. Jinger was slightly surprised. You don't look old, but your attainments in arrays are not shallow. Han Fei immediately sweated. My attainments? Everything can enter the array, and that control is simply inhuman. It's not something that I can draw by myself at all. Not to mention him. Even old Jiang didn't have this ability. This type of formation required an extremely high level of control over the divine soul. When Han Fei walked 1,000 meters away from the big tree, he found that some trants were either standing still or gently turning the ground, as if they were growing flowers and protecting the grass. Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. Corpse puppets? Jinger glanced at Han Fei curiously. You know this too? Han Fei smiled lightly. I've met them before. Needless to say, these corpse puppets should be dead trants and insects that have been refined into corpse puppets. However, in terms of strength, these corpse puppets were probably at least at the explorer level. This was not what Han Fei felt, but what he saw from the state of their bodies. Jinger said, ordinary people are not allowed to enter the Divine Palace. You are the first person to enter the Divine Palace as a non-venerable. Well, lucky guy. Han Fei thought of something. Non-venerables have to enter the Divine Palace? Does it mean that venerables have the strength to enter the Divine Palace? Han Fei remained calm and didn't respond. He broke through the vines and the twisted vines and trees and moved to the trunk of the big tree. But when Han Fei reached the trunk, his pupils constricted. Is this still the Cloud Sea Divine Tree? Yes, he could see some clues from a big tree and knew that it was the root of the tree. But the trunk in front of him seemed to be half unearthed. In other words, the Cloud Sea Divine Tree passed through the space crack and grew directly into the Divine Palace. Han Fei was a little shocked. Good heavens, what kind of tree is this? It's a bit too awesome. Jinger said, what's there to be surprised about? The Cloud Sea Divine Tree itself is also a king-level creature. Okay, don't be so surprised. Behave when you see the queen. You look a bit... Han Fei. Before Han Fei finished digesting the news, he was hit by Jinger's words. What's wrong with my looks? My looks, my figure, I'm not bad. But when Han Fei thought of the humans he saw just now, he couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Are the genes of the humans here all good? Are the offspring especially good-looking? Forget it. Han Fei now knew that the Cloud Sea Divine Tree was also a king-level creature, which was horrifying. In other words, there were two kings in the waterwood sky. This strength was a bit too horrifying. After taking a few more steps and passing through the tree barrier, Han Fei suddenly raised his head, only to see that there was a dense glow in the sky. Vaguely, he could see that there seemed to be a tree palace. It seemed that a particularly elegant and beautiful palace had been built on the branches of the tree. Jinger bowed and said, Your Majesty, the guest is here. From above, the extremely gentle voice just now said gently, Okay, come up. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed, and Jinger waved her hand in front of his eyes and said, Don't be in a daze. Her Majesty asked you to come up. Don't disrespect her. Ooh. Han Fei took a deep breath. He was going to meet the king, so he was a little nervous. Under Jinger's slightly amused expression, Han Fei stepped in the air, trying to balance himself and calm down. With a faint smile on his face, he slowly disappeared into the dense glow. But when Han Fei passed through the glow, he was surprised to find that there was no palace here. This was clearly a quaint, open courtyard with a delicate and elegant garden. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a small rising spring from which gurgling green liquid was gushing out. At that moment, Han Fei sensed endless vitality, and a term naturally popped up in his mind. Water of life. And in the corner of the courtyard, a graceful, almost perfect, gentle woman in a green cloud silk dress with her hair casually tossed over her shoulder was facing her back. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed and immediately cupped his hands. Han Fei from the Yin-Yang sky greets the queen. Chapter 1172. Han Fei stood there for quite a while and saw that the life queen was stirring the soil and watering it. Wait a minute. Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. What's that? Is that the Taoist aura? Tao, aura, and spirit awakening fluid were two completely different things. If it had to be related, it was because the mysterious Tao, if diluted, might produce a large amount of spirit awakening fluid. The Life Queen didn't ignore him. Although she didn't look back, she said in a low voice, "No one can enter the Yin-Yang heaven, right?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched. However, the other party was a king tier. He could brag in front of a group of children, but he had to brag in front of king. Han Fei said calmly, "Yes, no one can enter yet." The Life Queen continued, "The Waterwood sky is quite close to the Yin-Yang sky. You said that there was a great battle between venerables a few years ago, so it should be true. 3 venerables perished? The humans are at war with the Sea Tribe?" Han Fei was shocked. "You even know this?" Han Fei bit the bullet and said, "It's not that human beings started a war with the sea race. It's just that some greedy venerables were stirring up trouble in order to compete for the opportunity to become a king. So I killed a few of them." "Destroy it?" The Life Queen slowly turned around. Her delicate face, which was like a hibiscus emerging from clear water, dazzled Han Fei. If one really had to describe it, it would be that her skin was smooth and creamy, her aura was like an orchid, her hands were soft and supple, and her body was delicate and charming. His eyes were like an ancient well without any ripples, deep and soul-stirring. As soon as their eyes met, Han Fei's brain slowed down and he was a little stunned. At this moment, Han Fei's heart seemed to be knocked by someone, and he finally came back to his senses. The old tortoise's voice seemed illusory as he reminded, "Your strength is too low. Unless the king is willing, you cannot look straight at the king." Eh. The Life Queen was slightly surprised. Han Fei seemed to be shaken by some kind of power and came back to his senses. However, the Life Queen didn't really mind. She only said indifferently, "You're young, but you talk big. It's not like you were the one who killed them." Sure enough, humans have always been like this. Although they were the most suitable creatures for cultivation, they were also the creatures with the most complicated thoughts. "I think this matter has something to do with you, right?" Han Fei lowered his head, not because he wanted to lower it, but because he couldn't look at it directly. Han Fei smiled bitterly. It seemed like he couldn't hide anything from a king-tier expert. Seeing Han Fei's reaction, the Life Queen continued, "Your father came once and asked for 2 things and a promise from me. But the price has fallen on you. Listen to me first." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "What?" "I'll return the item that old Han asked for." Han Fei's expression remained unchanged, and he listened humbly. The Life Queen said, "The promise he made to me was that if anyone from the Yin-Yang heaven comes in the future, I must help them unconditionally as long as they don't harm the Waterwood heaven. And the price is that this person needs to help Shui Mutian completely eliminate the threat of the sea race." Han Fei frowned. This old Han must have thought this through before setting up the trap. He knew that if he wanted to become a king, he would have to stand against the aristocratic families. Therefore, he had sought an escape route in advance in the Shuimu heaven. However, was this price enough to help Shui Mutian completely resolve the threat of the sea race? That would be a bit difficult for him now. On the Yin-Yang heaven, he hadn't even taken care of the 10,000 Demon Valley yet. Maybe there would be another royal city later. What about Shui Mutian? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Queen, what kind of sea race threats are there in Shui Mutian?" The Life Queen smiled lightly. "The 2 sea race royal cities are guarded by at least 1 deep-sea giant demon." Wow! Han Fei was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked up. He had forgotten that he could look at a king-tier expert directly this time. Anyway, he was shocked. "Deep-sea giant demon?" The Life Queen nodded, folded her hands, and looked at Han Fei. "Once the 2 royal cities are destroyed, the other troubles will no longer be troubles." The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. "What do you mean? Apart from the deep-sea giant demon, there are other troubles?" Han Fei didn't feel good. Is old Han trying to trick me? The deep-sea giant demon. That's a super expert equivalent to a king-tier expert. If I had this ability, why would I need to come to the Waterwood heaven to make a breakthrough? As if knowing what Han Fei was thinking, the Life Queen smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I don't want you to take action now. You just need to agree to this matter now. Your father bet that you will become a king-tier expert, so as long as you dare to agree, you must complete this matter if you want your path to be smooth. Otherwise, your path as a king will be cut off. Gulp. Han Fei took a deep breath and asked in confusion, "Do you believe that I can become a king-tier expert?" The Life Queen said indifferently, "Before, I only heard about your father's plans. Now that I've met him in person, I can take a gamble. Anyway, what your father wants and this promise are not difficult for me." Han Fei understood. In other words, old Han knew very well that if he could really become a king-tier expert, the reward he would give would be far greater than what Shuemu Heaven paid. Han Fei smiled bitterly. Since things have come to this, I'll agree. It was not his turn not to agree. Old Han had already taken his things, and Shuemu Heaven had also come over. He had basically done all three things. How could he go back on his word? The Life Queen continued to fiddle with a red flower in front of her. The flower shook its body, but she said casually, "How long can you stay in Shuemu Heaven?" Han Fei thought for a moment. 3 years at most. The Life Queen nodded slightly. "I'll give you 3 years. During this period, you can freely break through to the Explorer level and integrate into any domain of Shuemu Heaven. However, Shuemu Heaven will not participate in the Battle of Inyang Heaven in 3 years. That's your business, and it's also a test for you." Han Fei made up his mind. "Okay, Jinger." The maidservant who had led the way for her just now had silently appeared beside her. "Your Majesty." While fiddling with the flowers and plants, the Life Queen said indifferently, "Take him to the human territory and give him the venerable token. In the future, he can do whatever he wants, but he doesn't have to deliberately help him." After saying that, the Life Queen thought for a moment and said to Jing, "When Han Fei transcends the tribulation, you will personally protect him." Jing was shocked and looked at Han Fei in astonishment. Who on earth is this person? A peak-level law enforcer with a venerable token? And he can do whatever he wants? Does he need me to protect him during tribulation? However, Jinger immediately replied respectfully, "Yes, Your Majesty." "Okay, go." Jinger looked at Han Fei. "Let's go." After leaving the courtyard, Han Fei glanced at this place. Unfortunately, he didn't have a chance to take a look at the entire Shuemu Heaven. However, Han Fei was sure that there were definitely a lot of strong masters here. Besides, Shuemu Heaven also used corpse puppets. Inyang Heaven also used corpse puppets. "Why?" Jinger asked. "What are you looking at?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Nothing. I'm just curious about how to refine corpse puppets." Jinger chuckled. "Corpse puppets? Think about it. When you become a king." Han Fei was not in a hurry to know the answer. What he really wanted to ask was why there were so many corpses in the Immortal Palace. What was the purpose? However, since it involved the Immortal Palace, he had to wait until he obtained the Inyang Palace. Before this, everything was bullsh asterisk T. Swish. Swish. When Han Fei and Jing came out together, the Venerable Bat was slightly surprised. The Red Falcon's eyes widened. "What's going on?" The Red Falcon hurriedly folded its wings and said respectfully, "Emissary Jing." The Venerable Bat also slightly lowered its head and saluted. This shocked Han Fei. "Damn, didn't you say that there was only one maid? Why did the Venerable bow to you?" Jing glanced at Han Fei smugly, and then pretended to be profound. "Well, you don't have to worry about Han Fei. From now on, just treat him as a member of the Shuemu Heaven, and he could do whatever he wants." The Venerable Bat looked at Han Fei curiously and said lightly, "Can I enter and exit the Immortal Palace?" Jinger said, "No, unless I bring him here." The Red Falcon looked at Han Fei a few more times, a little jealous. This kid can enter the Immortal Palace as soon as he arrives? How lucky did he get? After the Venerable Bat and the Red Falcon left, Jing handed Han Fei a square token, on which was engraved a bright red fruit in the shape of a water droplet. What kind of material was the token made of? As soon as Han Fei took it, he felt refreshed. If he was not mistaken, this thing seemed to be able to promote the cultivation of the divine soul. Jinger said, "There are only 73 venerable tokens in the entire Waterwood Fairy Palace. Their quality is comparable to sea-quelling bizarre treasures, and only kings can destroy them. Do you know about the sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Han Fei thought to himself, not only do I know, but I also have more. Han Fei couldn't help but nod. I know. Jinger smiled and said, that's good. This item can recognize its master. But after 3 years, he would need to take it back. It was better to wear it now. However, don't use it carelessly, and don't use the Venerable One's token as you please to order the creatures of the water with heaven. Got it. Only then did Jing urge, let's go. Come with me to the human race. It seemed that after leaving the immortal palace, Jinger was in a good mood. She took Han Fei to another teleportation array on a tree trunk. Only then did Han Fei realize that there were many teleportation arrays here. At a glance, there were more than 100 teleportation arrays. Seeing his expression, Jinger said, what's there to be surprised about? The Cloud Sea God tree was huge, so it was more convenient to use the teleportation array. Forget it, I'll tell you. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1173. On the way to the human race, Jing briefly told Han Fei about the layout of the Waterwood Heaven. It turned out that there were also 4 battlefields in the Waterwood Heaven, namely the Realm of Ice, the Sea of Flames, the Dark Warport, and the Whole Sea. Among them, ordinary people would usually train and hunt in the Realm of Ice and the Whole Sea. The Sea of Flames and the Dark Warport were the most dangerous places in the Waterwood Heaven. It was said that there were battles with sea demons all year round. In the Sea of Flames, there was a wall of flames, which was a barrier to divide the battlefield. In the Dark Warport, there was a place called the Fearless Barrier, which was said to be guarded by many strong masters. Han Fei was not very curious about these things. He was here to seek a breakthrough. There was no need to run to other people's battlefields to make trouble. It was better to find a place to make a breakthrough quietly. That was the right way. Swish! When the teleportation array flashed, Han Fei landed directly on an extremely thick tree trunk. In the distance, the trees were dense, and the sunlight couldn't fully shine in, so it looked a little gloomy. As far as Han Fei could see, there seemed to be all kinds of strange-shaped tree houses in the distance, in addition to the relatively open area where he was now. Some houses were hung on the tree trunks by vines. Some tree houses were even built on leaves. There were only a few people he could see. As soon as Han Fei and Jing appeared, someone immediately scanned them. Hiss! Envoy Jing? Swish! With a whoosh, someone appeared on the tree trunk plaza. The man said in surprise, Envoy Jing, why are you here? As he spoke, the man's pupils suddenly constricted, and he stared at Han Fei blankly. The first thing he noticed was Han Fei's face, and then he was stunned by the venerable token hanging on Han Fei's waist. Hiss! Human race? Jing raised her head and said, Lu Lihan, where are Wushang Shui and Yu Chen? The handsome Lu Lihan quickly came back to his senses. Oh, Venerable Snow and Master Yu Chen went to inspect the human race. Shall I call them back? Jinger nodded. Call them back. By the way, inform all the peak-level explorers to come. Lu Lihan was startled. She looked at Han Fei again and thought to herself, what's going on? Lu Lihan's voice was slightly heavy. Envoy Jing, please wait a moment. Whoosh. After Lu Lihan left, Han Fei asked in surprise, are all the people here so handsome? Jinger tilted her head and looked at Han Fei. Am I handsome? Anyway, this is the first time I've seen someone as ugly as you. Han Fei really wanted to slap himself. Why'd he mention this? Wasn't this asking for a blow? Jinger giggled. All right, I won't tease you. The people of the Waterwood Heaven should be living on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree all year round, so it's normal for the humans here to be different from the humans on your side. Once you become an explorer, it will be very easy to make yourself more handsome. You should be able to do it now, right? Han Fei mumbled, I think I'm pretty good right now. Pooh, where does your confidence come from? Han Fei rolled his eyes, feeling that chatting with Jinger was not stressful at all. However, chatting with the Life Queen was too stressful. However, he heard Jinger say, all right, when you get back, you should familiarize yourself with the Cloud Sea Divine Tree for a few days. When you need to transcend the tribulation, you just need to call me through the venerable token. Because this is my venerable token. Cough. Cough, cough. Han Fei staggered. F*CK, Jing is a venerable? Han Fei didn't feel good again. She looks like a little girl, but she's actually a venerable? Are you going to give me a hard time? Han Fei tried to keep his face calm. Okay, if I transcend the tribulation here, do I have to leave the Cloud Sea Divine Tree? Jing nodded. Of course. Who dares to transcend the tribulation on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree? Do you want to die? You're not familiar with the outer waters of the Waterwood Heaven, so other people won't protect you. After you get to know this place, you can choose where to transcend the tribulation. Swish, swish. While the two of them were talking, they saw a beautiful and cold beauty suddenly appear in front of them. Following that schwa schwa schwa, handsome men and beautiful women appeared one after another. Some took teleportation arrays, and some directly tore the void. At a glance, those faces... Oh my God! Han Fei felt a little uncomfortable. Jinger smiled slightly. Shwe, I brought you a person. The great beauty who appeared first looked like an elf in a movie. She had fair skin, shoulder-length short hair, aqua blue eyes, and normal ears. This made Han Fei realize that the coldness of beautiful women could usually be combined with valiance. Her posture was not worse than Shimin Linglin's, and her appearance was even better than Shimin Linglin's. Han Fei murmured to himself, this must be the Wushang Shue that Jing mentioned, also the human venerable snow. Looking at the others, some of them didn't conceal their auras, which was definitely the standard of peak-level explorers. However, there were only 10 people here. 1 venerable and 9 peak-level explorers didn't seem to be a lot. After all, there were 72 venerables in the Waterwood Heaven. Logically speaking, there should be more than 1 human venerable. Sure enough, Wushang Shue said, Jinger, what do you mean? If there's anything, you only come to me. Everyone else is dead, right? Han Fei seemed a little impatient when he heard this. It seemed that Jinger brought him here on purpose. Jinger jumped to Wushang Shue's side, hugged her arm, and said, Oh, I'm the closest to you. Oh, his name is Han Fei from the Yinyang Heaven. In the future, he will stay in the Waterwood Heaven for 3 years. So I directly brought him here. Needless to say, Wushang Shue and the others had already been looking at Han Fei. Wushang Shue was surprised. The Yinyang Heaven? Is that road open? Jing said coquettishly, No, he's special, so I came here. Wushang Shue looked at Han Fei in confusion. A peak-level law enforcer? Why did you give him your venerable token? Jing said, The queen asked me to give it to him. Wushang Shue's eyes narrowed. You mean this person has been to the Divine Palace? Yes, yes. Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. Greetings, Venerable Snow and everyone else. Someone wondered, Emissary Jing, this person came here from the Yinyang Heaven just to stay here for 3 years. Jing said casually, Han Fei is here to transcend the tribulation and familiarize himself with the camp of the Waterwood Heaven in advance. He will come to help in the future. Him? What? A peak-level law enforcer? The group of people frowned as if they didn't think highly of Han Fei's strength at all. Wushang Shue said lightly, What do you need me to do? Take it with me? Jing shook her head. No, Han Fei can go anywhere in the Waterwood Heaven. Just arrange someone to teach him about the Waterwood Heaven. Han Fei was a little embarrassed. These people didn't seem to take him seriously. How could they underestimate him? Damn it, I'm just not as good-looking as you. Do they have to? Wushang Shue narrowed his eyes and said, Oh, he can go anywhere. Is he very strong? Jing looked at Han Fei. He should be very strong. Wushang Shue glanced at a handsome young man next to him. Yu-Chen, suppress your strength to the level of a peak-level law enforcer and fight with him. Hearing this, Jinger immediately exclaimed and said, That's not good, is it? Yu-Chen is about to become a venerable. Wushang Shue said lightly, It's okay. He must be extraordinary to be treated so well by the queen. If he can't even compare to Yu-Chen, how can he help the Waterwood Heaven? The handsome man said with a smile, How do you want to fight? Fight here or go to the great illusionary land. Wu Shui glanced at Han Fei. The great illusionary land. Seeing that Han Fei was dumbfounded, Jinger immediately said, "The great illusionary land is also known as the dream trial field. It's a special ability of the cloud sea divine tree. You just need to press a cloud sea leaf and sink your mind into it, and you will appear in the great illusionary land." Han Fei grinned slightly. "Well, can I say something?" Everyone looked at Han Fei, thinking, what else do you need to say? Could it be that he was afraid? Han Fei smiled and said lightly, "You may not be able to beat me at the level of a peak-level law enforcer. You'd better suppress your strength to the level of an explorer, preferably an intermediate one." Han Fei was just stating a fact. These people had no idea how strong he was now. After 4 years of accumulation, his perception range had reached more than 1,200 kilometers, and his strength had grown from 54 waves to 76 waves, an increase of more than 20 waves. Sure enough, everyone had different reactions. They were all very shocked. "Hiss! What?" a woman said with an ugly expression. "You're Han Fei, right? You have to know that you're facing a powerhouse who is about to become a venerable. It's okay for young people to be a little arrogant. We know you have some talent, but don't be too arrogant." Wu Shui glanced at that person, and the latter shut up. Wu Shui looked at Han Fei and said seriously, "Everything in the great illusionary land is real. Even your body will feel real. If you're really seriously injured, your soul will also be shaken. You just need to be sure." Han Fei sneered in his heart. "In a sense, I represent the future king of the Yin Yang heaven. It's not an exaggeration to say that I'm the strongest in the Yin Yang heaven. How can I lower the prestige of the Yin Yang heaven at this moment?" Han Fei smiled slightly. "No, I'm used to fighting like this." Yu Chen, however, smiled and said in a very gentle voice, "Okay, in that case, let's fight like this." Jinger blinked her eyes, quite curious. A guy who can win the queen's favor must have some ability. There were many people in the great illusionary land. If Han Fei could face Yu Chen without being defeated, it would be enough to shock the major clans of the Waterwood Heaven. Wu Shui glanced at the leaves in the sea of clouds and said, "Choose a random leaf and sit on it. I'll wait for you in the great illusionary land." Swish, swish. Almost with a swish, these people disappeared in front of him, and each sat on a leaf. Han Fei grinned. "This is a fight. I'm not a coward." Then Han Fei appeared on a leaf, sank his mind, and scanned the leaf with his soul. All of a sudden, an extremely mysterious feeling appeared. When he reappeared, he found himself standing on an incomparably large square. But looking around, he could still see the huge branches. He was still on the tree. It's a bit amazing. Am I in the soul of the cloud sea divine tree? Not far away, in addition to Wu Shui and Jing, there were creatures of other races. A few big bluebirds, some spider monsters, and a few large-horned beetles were looking at this side curiously. Second update. Asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1174. Because he had been to the Ideal Palace before, he was not surprised by this kind of illusion, but he was very skeptical about the absolute safety of this place. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Jing. If my soul is destroyed here, will there be any danger in reality? Wu Shui was a little surprised. Are you talking about soul skills? Han Fei slightly nodded. Whether it was the void lines or the 100 beasts' soul-suppressing howl, they were not weak. They were both powerful killing weapons that could strangle one's divine soul. What if they really used it in the heat of battle? Who would be the one to blame in the end? Jinger said, "Don't worry, I'll tell the cloud sea divine tree. You can fight without worry." However, he saw that Jing had her eyes closed, as if she was communicating with something. After a full 10 breaths, she finally opened her eyes. "All right, if necessary, the cloud sea divine tree will act. So, you don't have to worry about any accidents." Han Fei thought to himself, it seems that it's not so safe in this grand illusionary land. Once their souls were destroyed, even if they weren't directly killed, they would definitely suffer extremely heavy injuries. Yu Chen still had a smile on his face, but he no longer underestimated him. Since the other party said so, it meant that Han Fei had a soul attack method, a soul attack technique that even the great illusionary land could not withstand was naturally not to be underestimated. Not far away, the beetles that were colliding with each other couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this static messenger? Why is revered snow here? Chirp, come quickly, there's a big battle here." Suddenly, Jinger shouted from afar, "No one is allowed to come within 10 li of this place." Jing-er's shout attracted some of the living beings of the various races in the great illusionary land. Yu-Chin flipped his hand, and a longbow appeared in his hand. It was very different from the common longbows. It seemed like the longbows of Shuemu's sky were more unique. This longbow was designed to be shaped like a blade, and there were blades on both sides. Han Fei keenly sensed that the longbow seemed to be joined. If nothing went wrong, the longbow could actually be split apart, forming 2 blades. Interesting. Yu-Chin smiled faintly. The Shuemu heavenly human race has many manipulators, and their battle-bout techniques have evolved to the extreme. Therefore, many people were both manipulators and soul warriors. It just so happens that I'm very strong in both elements. Han Fei thought for a moment. Since the man had told him his occupation, he should say something. Han Fei stepped forward and formed an array with each step. The 6-spirit armor and the coiled turtle array were the simplest, and Han Fei also created a tidal array. At that moment, huge waves rose behind him. His voice was leisurely. "Due to the geographical conditions, I am a spirit gatherer and a soul warrior. However, I have learned a lot of things. It involves formations, sabers, staffs, and sword seals. I am proficient in a few of them. Because I walk the path of body refinement, my fist technique is even stronger." Next door, Jing-er, who was watching the battle, couldn't help but clap her hands. Wow, Shui, look, I said that this kid has some ability, right?" Wushang Shui frowned slightly. "Don't you think it's too complicated?" Someone shook his head. "His foundation seems very young. It's hard for him to master so many spells at the same time, isn't it?" In the distance, a group of birds, insects, and humans surrounded them. Some young people looked and immediately exclaimed, "Isn't that Lord Yu-Chen?" Who was the one sparring with Lord Yu-Chen? He's so ugly." A big spider was stunned. "Why is that human only a peak-level law enforcer? Why didn't Lord Yu-Chen suppress his realm?" A big snake said he suppressed his realm. He's an intermediate explorer. "Wow, challenging Lord Yu-Chen? Is this guy kidding me?" A girl flew over with a bow. "The person on the other side doesn't look weak. Look, there seem to be countless blades flying in the tide." Voila. Han Fei activated Devil Change and stretched out the phantom glass wings. He didn't plan to fuse with Little Black and Little White. If the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes appeared, it would be too weird. Besides, he still planned to keep some trump cards. After all, he was in someone else's territory. If he were to reveal all of his trump cards, wouldn't that make him seem too shallow? Wushang Shui shouted in a low voice. "Yu-Chen, if you lose, go to the Fearless Barrier and kill a big demon at the peak-level Dao-seeking state before coming back." Hearing this, Yu-Chen immediately shouted, "Han Fei, go all out." Han Fei's eyes narrowed. Of course. Swish. In the field, the two disappeared almost at the same time. In the void, an arrow shadow traversed, with red wings spread, like a big bird of fire. On Han Fei's side, in the tide, thousands of knives flowed. In an instant, the arrows broke out of the water, and the sky was filled with knife light. In just an instant, the knives and arrows collided, and the torrent of knives was pierced in half by the arrows. And the arrow that looked like a big bird was also shattered by the torrent of knives. Clank, clank, clank. In the void, the two figures appeared in many places. Swish. He activated the draw technique, and the knife light tore the void within a kilometer. At the same time, a terrifying stinger pierced through like a sharp arrow. On the other side, a massive number of vines rose. Yu-Chen nimbly shuttled through the vines, stretched out his longbow, and in the blink of an eye, more than 30 arrows, one after another, smashed the void and bombarded the draw technique. Clang, clang, clang. Kacha. The 10,000-year demon stinger was cut off by Yu Chen with a backhand slash. Swish. Swish. This battle lasted only 2 minutes. At this moment, the two stepped into the void, each standing on one side. Jing O's eyes glowed. Wow, he's quite powerful, isn't he? Han Fei's knife skills are very powerful, and Yu Chen's arrows are faster than before. Wu Shanxue nodded slightly. He's very strong. He's a peak-level law enforcer fighting an intermediate explorer. He's definitely a peak-level heavenly talent. Next to Wu Shanxue, the other peak-level explorers looked serious. He's indeed very strong. Although it was just a tentative battle, Han Fei didn't lose the upper hand. This made them have to be cautious. The creatures of various races watching the battle not far away kept exclaiming at this moment. Wow, it's too fast. I can't see it at all. A beetle's eyes kept rolling. Who's better? Someone responded. No one is better. They're neck and neck. The young man was shocked. Who the hell is he? Yu Chen, a peak-level law enforcer, can fight an intermediate explorer. If there is such a person in the Shuimu heaven, how can I not know him? More and more people were around. Yu Chen smiled. No need to test me. Come on. Han Fei nodded slightly. Just now, he only used 50% of his strength, and Yu Chen only used the power of a beginner intermediate explorer. If he attacked with all his strength, he could kill the opponent in an instant. 17 arrows of Dao seeking. Yu Chen directly entered the spirit plant, and no one knew where he went. Han Fei couldn't use the yin-yang divine eyes, so he could only see the shadows of people on the vines through the eyes of true vision. Suddenly, he saw a giant fiery serpent swooping over like a dragon. A lock-on technique? Han Fei froze, stood proudly in the void, and pointed his finger. 10,000 knives in one. The snowflake-like knife light gathered into a knife, which slashed through the void and caused the void to tremble. Bam! The giant fiery serpent was torn apart in an instant. But in the next second, 16 fiery serpents pounced out in a row, and each wave was more powerful than the last. Bam! 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 Someone sighed. Although this person is very strong, it's impossible for him to block them. Master Yu Chen's last 3 arrows are still enchanted. Wu Shanxue and the others were expressionless and just watched the battle very carefully. Han Fei grinned. What a strong archery technique. I'm surprised. Huh. Han Fei roared, and the invincible will appeared. In the golden giant shadow, Han Fei raised his fist, and a humming array light appeared on his hand. Sacrificing, fist mark, Kacha. The 10,000 knives in one collapsed on the 5th arrow. At this moment, the void trembled, and a terrifying force broke out from Han Fei. Boom! A fist mark rumbled, and the blood-red light shone brightly. A fist mark rushed all the way like a savage behemoth. Who cared about the arrow shadows? They collapsed directly. Bam! 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 9 fiery serpents were punched through in a row. They couldn't resist Han Fei's terrifying blow at all. This scene made everyone's divine soul suffocate. What a powerful fist seal! Someone exclaimed, so strong. This ugly man is so strong. A big insect shrank. This fist can easily punch through my carapace. Even Wu Shanxue was surprised. This kind of extremely domineering fist mark, ordinary people can't withstand it at all. I'm afraid this guy's physique has already reached a terrifying level. Jing Er's eyes widened. Although she was a venerable, she had been staying in the Immortal Palace. She didn't even have a chance to fight, so she liked to watch this kind of drama. However, Wu Shanxue said, but it's still a little short. On the battlefield, the last 3 arrows rolled up 1,000 feet of flames, and the giant serpents roared, making many people shrink their heads. Han Fei clearly felt that when the last 3 arrows appeared, the sacrificing fist mark couldn't withstand it anymore. Oh! With a dragon roar, the 9 Mansions dragon seal broke out, and Han Fei smashed it out. Bam! The arrow shadow containing Taoist sense collapsed, but the next arrow shadow burst out. That terrifying blow, together with the sacrificing fist mark and the 9 dragon seal, collapsed at the same time. Swish! Before Han Fei could react, the last arrow had already burst out. At this time, void distortion was useless, and the locking skill wouldn't stop shooting at him just because he ran away. Demon suppressing diamond. At that moment, another golden man rose from the ground. In the exclamations of countless people, Han Fei directly caught this arrow with both hands. Together with the arrow, he was blasted more than 300 feet away by the arrow. The roaring explosion shook in the billowing flames. Wow, that person! How dare he catch the arrow with his bare hands? Is he crazy, or am I crazy? Isn't he sure to lose? What a fierce person. He's too fierce. However, at the moment when Han Fei caught the arrow with his bare hands, Jing'e Wuxianxue and other strong masters were all shocked. Others didn't know, but they saw it clearly at that moment. The golden giant blocked the Taoist sense with one palm. Han Fei's body was shining with golden light, and he held the arrow with his bare hands, which was extremely domineering. At that moment, countless sharp vines like chains stabbed at Han Fei in the flames. Han Fei smiled. Ha! It seems that I underestimated the enemy. However, this is also good. It makes me realize that peak-level law enforcers have limits. In the waves of fire, Han Fei's voice sounded leisurely. Yu Chen's pupils constricted, and he immediately shouted, "Arrow of Destiny." A massive number of vines gathered, and the big bow floated in the air. There was a big hand in the void holding the arrow, and endless energy poured into the arrow. Someone shouted, "Hurry up and retreat. Your life is on the line." This is the arrow extinguishing technique. Huh! Just as these people were exclaiming in shock, they heard a furious roar. In the flames, a huge figure more than 50 meters tall suddenly appeared. When everyone saw it clearly, they were all stunned. What kind of creature is this? I know that many people are going to say that I'm in the wrong chapter again. TSK, let me reply weakly. Rome wasn't built in a day, so I have to take it slow. Into this chapter. Chapter 1175. Before the battle, Han Fei had never thought that he would use the Beast King art. This wasn't a quick battle, so Han Fei didn't need to be extremely powerful at the beginning. He didn't even want to show too much of his strength and wanted to preserve it. However, when Yu Chen's terrifying arrow was pulled, Han Fei knew that he had underestimated his opponent. How could a powerhouse who was expected to become a venerable be so simple? Besides, the other party only suppressed his strength to that of an intermediate explorer, and he was still a peak-level explorer. At this moment, as soon as the Beast King art was activated, Han Fei's strength soared. In the Immortal Palace, the Life Queen, who was feeding a spiritual fruit, was slightly taken aback and asked in confusion, "The Beast King art?" On the battlefield, everyone was dumbfounded by Han Fei's transformation. Jing'e jumped and exclaimed, "This is the ancient beast race." The beast race ape? Wuxianxue was also stunned. The beast race? The one that has disappeared in the long river of history? Jing'e nodded repeatedly. Yes. Could it be that there are still beasts in the Yin-Yang heaven? However, while they were talking, Han Fei stretched out his hand and the embroidery needle appeared. Han Fei held the rod with both hands and raised it to the sky. Huh! With an extremely domineering roar, Yu Chen grunted and vomited a mouthful of blood. Immediately afterward, everyone saw the phantoms of hundreds of beasts galloping and roaring in the air. Swish! A huge firebird with 3 gorgeous long feathers swept across the sky. Bam! 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 The Monkey King 3,000 strikes erupted. At that moment, cracks appeared in the void, followed by shattering. In an instant, hundreds of terrifying attacks were launched. That was called ferocious. Before the 100 cudgels had even arrived, the Fire Phoenix had already collapsed. The remaining half of the arrows were shot at Han Fei because they were too fast. However, the giant ape's big hand clenched and crushed them. Such a terrifying attack didn't even break the skin of Han Fei's ape form. The hundreds of beasts roared, and Yu Chen vomited several mouthfuls of blood, losing half of his strength. Oh! He opened his big mouth full of sharp teeth, and all the surrounding energy, including the raging flames, was swallowed by him. The horror of the body of war was revealed. The Monkey King's 3,000 strikes continued, shattering the vines that were blocking the way. At that moment, Wushang Shui shouted, "Yu Qin, advanced explorer." He seized the air with his fingers, and without the longbow, he shot out 5 sharp arrows. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the 5 arrows shattered. However, this also bought Yu Qin some time, allowing him to fire another chain of arrows. Swish, swish, swish. Bang, bang, bang. Han Fei grinned disdainfully. Competing in endurance with the Monkey King's 3,000 strikes? What are you thinking about? 3,000 layered waves? Was he joking with you? Sure enough, after more than 200 arrows, Yu Qin found that even though he was an advanced explorer, he couldn't resist Han Fei's continuous attacks. During the battle, all the energy around him would be plundered by Han Fei. Buzz! Yu Qin disappeared from where he was. 7 or 8 vines split open, and 7 or 8 Yu Qin appeared. Han Fei held the embroidery needle with one hand. Grow, grow, grow. Roar. The 100-beast, soul-suppressing roar erupted again. The embroidery needle swept out, and all the vines exploded. Not a single one of them was a match for it. Because the battle was too shocking, countless people cast their eyes over. Many people had never seen such an explosive battle before. They had never expected that a person's physique could be so strong, and they had never seen such a terrifying creature like the prehistoric giant ape. Therefore, their blood was boiling as they watched the battle. Wushang Shui shouted, "Okay, that's enough. Yu Qin is defeated." Hearing this, Han Fei immediately swung the big rod and carried it on his shoulder. His eyes were cold and terrifying. Yu Qin walked out of a demonic vine and curled the corner of his mouth. What kind of monster am I fighting with? Han Fei put the incomparably thick embroidery needle vertically on the ground, and his body quickly shrank, turning from an ape to a human. In the end, he twisted his neck, full of fighting spirit. Wushang Shui was speechless. She couldn't help but look at Jinger, who was still excited, tugged at her clothes, and said, "Don't be silly. Who is this guy?" Jinger hadn't come back to her senses yet and replied casually, he should be a king candidate from the Yin-Yang heaven. Pooh! Yu Qin, who had just left the battle, vomited blood. Why didn't you tell me earlier? A king candidate? You F***king asked me to suppress my realm to fight him? I was almost F***ked senseless. Wushang Shui looked at the heartless Jinger speechlessly and covered his head with one hand. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Under countless shocked gazes, Han Fei put his hand on the pillar-like embroidery needle, and the latter swooshed and sank into Han Fei's body. Wushang Shui patted Jinger's head. He still has a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Why didn't you tell me? Jinger was taken aback. I didn't know. Wushang Shui. With a big smile on his face, Han Fei cupped his hands. Thank you. Yu Qin didn't feel good. Forget it. You just want me to go to the fearless barrier and kill a peak-level, Dao-seeking big demon. I'll go. In the distance, exclamations were heard. Wow, this guy actually won. So cool. What was that creature just now? It's so scary. His mouth is so big, like the sharp teeth of a dragon. His muscles are all over the place. He's ugly but adorably cute. Han Fei staggered. What's so ugly and cute about it? Isn't he ferocious? Wushang Shui glanced around, thought for a moment, and said casually, "This boy's name is Han Fei, and he comes from the Yin-Yang heaven. In the future, he will stay in our Shuemu heaven for 3 years. Just know him." Wow, can people from the Yin-Yang heaven come over? Wow, he's from the Yin-Yang heaven? A big beetle shook its head. The Yin-Yang heaven, the legendary Yin-Yang heaven. A big bird asked curiously, "Are there many beasts in the Yin-Yang heaven?" A human being asked curiously, "Han Fei, what is the Yin-Yang heaven like?" Jinger finally came back to herself and said to the group of people, "Don't ask questions. You'll know in the future. Okay, let's go." Han Fei glanced at Jing. "How we go out?" Jinger said, "Just communicate with the grand illusionary land with your mind." After a moment, when Han Fei opened his eyes, he looked at the big leaf under him in surprise, thinking this cloud sea divine tree is really amazing. It can even create a place comparable to the ideal palace. Suddenly, Jing'er shouted, Han Fei, why are you still sitting there? Come down. Han Fei looked around and found that everyone was already waiting for him. So, he flashed and appeared in front of everyone. However, at this moment, the way those peak-level explorers looked at Han Fei had already changed. It was the first time they had seen a peak-level law enforcer fighting an advanced explorer. However, thinking that Han Fei was a candidate for the king, they were finally relieved. If everyone in the Yin-Yang heaven was like this, then the Yin-Yang heaven would be too terrifying. Wu Shangshui looked at Han Fei again with a complicated expression. Okay, you are indeed a candidate for the king. Come back to the city with me. I'll ask someone to tell you about the current situation of the Shumu heaven. Jing'er still wanted to follow him, when Wu Shangshui suddenly said, Aren't you going back to the divine palace? Jing'er was stunned for a moment. I am going to stay for dinner before going back. I want to eat fish cakes. Jing'er thought to herself, it's not easy for me to come out. Do you think it's easy for me? Human cooking is delicious. I'm drooling just thinking about it. Han Fei said in surprise, Huh, do people eat here too? Wu Shangshui was stunned. Don't people in the Yin-Yang heaven need to eat? Han Fei immediately had an idea. Huh, no, of course they need to eat. In fact, what I want to say is that compared with my strength, I still have one thing that is the strongest. It could be said to be the strongest in the Yin-Yang heaven. Suddenly, the corners of their mouths twitched. Are the people of the Yin-Yang heaven all so shameless? I know you're very strong. Okay, what else do you want to show off for? Jing'er asked curiously, Do you have any special abilities? Han Fei held his head high and said proudly, My cooking skills are unparalleled in the world. I won't cook for ordinary people, but I have to do it today. Jing'er immediately widened her eyes. Really? Is it more delicious than the fish cakes of human beings? The Life Queen, who was in the divine palace, sighed gloomily. Why did she find such a stupid maid? She's so stupid. She has never eaten fish cakes. How can she compete with her? Among the peak-level explorers, a short explorer was immediately dissatisfied. That's impossible. Our fish cakes are unparalleled in the world, and all races like to eat them, especially those shameless golden turtles, who come here to eat and drink whenever they have nothing to do. Han Fei grinned. That's not necessarily true. As he spoke, Han Fei took out a box of potato chips, as if by magic, and took a bite. To tell you the truth, I have already comprehended the great path of cooking. Jing'er quickly reached out and grabbed a piece, saying with some disgust, It's just a little bit. I'm not full. After that, she also took a bite of it with a smack sound. Suddenly, Wu Shangshui and the others found that Jing'er was stunned on the spot. Wu Shangshui said with a black face, Do you have to do this? Wu Shangshui glanced at the box in Han Fei's hand, pinched a piece suspiciously, and took a bite. Under the gaze of a group of peak-level explorers, Wu Shangshui glanced at them, stuffed the potato chips into his mouth, and said softly, Let's go. Let's go back to the city. Yu Qin hadn't left yet. He looked at Jing'er and then at Wu Shangshui, thinking, Is it very delicious? At their level, they would no longer be tempted by external things. However, it was perfectly normal for them to have a sumptuous meal. Yu Qin was about to pinch a piece, only to see that the box was gone. At some point, Jing'er had already held the box in her hand. Han Fei, look, I've led the way for you. This is mine. By the way, let's go back to the city. My time is limited. I have to go back after the meal. Han Fei, Yu Qin, and the others. First update, asking for votes. Into this chapter, Chapter 1176. It turned out that there was also a city on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. However, this city was completely different from the kind of cities that Han Fei was familiar with. Rather than calling it a city, it would be better to call it a primitive tribal settlement. Even a venerable like Wu Shang, Shui had only built a courtyard on one of the tree branches. He did not even set up a formation. However, no one would be stupid enough to use their perception to see what the venerable's house looked like. Otherwise, if they were not careful, they would face the risk of being slapped to death. Wu Shangshui led a group of people directly to his courtyard. Along the way, they all took teleportation arrays. Han Fei's only feeling was that it was really troublesome to walk on this cloud sea divine tree. There were teleportation arrays everywhere. If they were not careful, they would easily go the wrong way. If they went the wrong way and didn't know they had gone the wrong way, they might directly face the risk of getting lost. In the Venerable's courtyard, there was a row of barbecue grills and a large pot cooking. The tempting aroma made the group of people swallow involuntarily. Jing was holding a garlic prawn in her hand and eating it. Then she looked at Han Fei curiously. Why are the ingredients you used so low-level but so delicious? Han Fei said with a smile, everything in the world has its own uniqueness. As long as we see the essence through the phenomenon, we can discover what things look like behind them. Wu Shangshue's eyelids moved slightly. Holding a roasted clam in his hand, he was a little surprised to hear Han Fei bragging. These words seemed to make sense. Someone said, Han Fei, what kind of pot is this? Is it ready? Han Fei said, please wait a moment. There are still some ingredients that haven't been added. Wu Shangxue was speechless. It's just a meal. You've already added more than 20 kinds of ingredients. Han Fei smiled. It's like practicing combat skills. There are many technical considerations. The same is true for cooking. Depending on the time, the intensity of the fire, the amount of ingredients, and the amount of water, the taste will be different. Jinger nodded quickly and quietly grabbed a skewer of grilled squid from the barbecue grill. After a moment, when the hot pot was ready, the soaring aroma began to spread in all directions. However, with a thought from Wu Shangxue, the entire courtyard was closed. This rich aroma could not be emitted at all. For the first time, Han Fei discovered that a venerable could be like this. It was just a hot pot and barbecue. Jing ate without caring about her image. Han Fei thought to himself, isn't the venerable going to enter the Tao? Would a person who could enter the Tao be so naive and naive? On the other hand, Wu Shangxue and the group of peak-level explorers also praised him, but they only praised him once from the beginning to the end. Then, although the hot pot was delicious, he ate it in small bites. Han Fei chuckled in his heart. It seemed simple, but it was extremely practical. In a sense, the more exquisite his skills were, the more the other party would think that he had put in a lot of effort. To put it bluntly, it should be easy to exchange a meal for a combat skill here. However, Han Fei didn't lack combat skills. Since he had just arrived, all he had to do was feed them. He fed them so crazily that they felt embarrassed. The more he ate, the better it would be for him. Halfway through the hot pot, Wu Shangxue suddenly stopped moving his chopsticks. In the end, it's just the desire for food. This Tao could easily hinder one's cultivation. Jing don't come here so often. Why? Jing whose mouth was full of grease, suddenly widened her eyes and thought to herself, why does it hinder my cultivation? Wu Shangxue glanced at Han Fei and said, since your purpose here is to transcend the tribulation, don't wander around the city every day. Later, I'll ask someone to take you around and visit all the battlefields. Your strength has reached the peak of law enforcer, and it's only a matter of time before you make a breakthrough. Don't delay. Han Fei nodded slightly. Okay, it didn't matter whether he fed him or not. However, this venerable Snow's self-restraint was quite strong. When he ate hot pot for the first time, he managed to hold back. When he was in the Scattered Stars prison, even old Han couldn't hold back and asked him to cook every day. Jing suddenly said, why don't I introduce you to him? Wu Shangxue glared at Jing. Don't even think about it. Her Majesty will catch you. Jing snorted and then secretly said to Han Fei, remember to make more noise. I'll help you. Han Fei was speechless. You'll help me? You're just here to eat, aren't you? However, the feeding effect is not bad. Jing was a venerable after all. If he could have the help of a venerable, the trip to the Shuemu heaven would be smooth and there shouldn't be any big problems. After the meal, Jing still wanted to have some more barbecue. However, suddenly, a pink flower bloomed in front of her. When he saw this flower, Wu Shangxue looked as if he was trying to hold back his laughter. Jing bowed to Little Blossom aggrievedly. Your Majesty, I'm going back now. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Did the Life Queen come to ask for her in person? Han Fei wondered if he should bribe the Life Queen when he had time in the future. He had to get some high-level ingredients. The combat level of the Shuemu Heaven was higher than that of the Yin-Yang Heaven. There should be no shortage of legendary creatures. Before Jing left, she glanced at Han Fei. Remember to call me when you transcend the tribulation. Han Fei smiled faintly. Sure. As soon as Jing left, Wushang Shui immediately said, disperse. Yu Chen, find someone to show Han Fei around the Shuemu Heaven, and then you go to the fearless barrier yourself. Yu Chen smiled helplessly. Okay, Han Fei, come with me. When the others left, only Han Fei and Yu Chen were left. The latter smiled faintly. Han Fei, are there still beasts in the Yin-Yang Heaven? Han Fei thought to himself, are you still thinking about this? He immediately said, it's hard to find beasts. I only obtained some inheritance in an ancient mystic realm. Yu Chen hummed and suddenly changed the topic. Well, do you want to make your face a little prettier? Han Fei. Yu Chen thought to himself, in terms of potential, I'm not as good as you, but you are too ugly. It's really embarrassing to stay here. Han Fei shook his head. Actually, I am very handsome in the Yin-Yang Heaven. Yu Chen's body stiffened and he smiled awkwardly. Oh, really? That's really unexpected. After only a few steps, Yu Chen suddenly shouted in a low voice, young man, come here. Yu Chen was semi-venerable, so he certainly wouldn't go to a crowded town for no reason. He just scanned with his perception and found that there were only a few heavenly talents in the city at this moment who hadn't entered the state of cultivation. So he called the strongest one over. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei saw a vigorous woman in a fashionable green battle suit shuttling between the branches. Beside her, there was a longbow in the shape of an eagle's wing, drawing beautiful arcs in the air. Why else would it be said that women were the most admirable creatures? That flexible body, perfect curves if coupled with a good-looking face, it would really be worth appreciating. However, Han Fei, who had seen too many beautiful women, was not interested in this at all. He looked calm. Compared with the Life Queen, Jinger, and Wushang Shui, this girl seemed a little immature. This girl had a delicate face. She clearly had some baby fat, but she kept a straight face, as if she wanted to make herself look colder. However, her cute appearance couldn't support her cold temperament at all. When the woman landed in front of Han Fei and Yu Chen, she first bowed. Greetings, Your Excellency. Then, the woman frowned and looked at Han Fei, as if thinking, why does this person look like this? Has he never received the Life Queen's favor? However, she was immediately shocked. She stared at the token on Han Fei's waist and took a deep breath. Messenger Jing's venerable token? Yu Chen said lightly, this is Han Fei, a distinguished guest from the Yin-Yang Heaven. It can be said that he is the strongest heavenly talent of the same generation in the Yin-Yang Heaven. I'm no match for him in the same realm or even higher realm. From now on, Han Fei will stay in the Shuemu Heaven for 3 years and live in our flying feather tribe. Han Fei is here for the tribulation. Before that, you will follow him and introduce the terrain and battle situation of the Shuemu Heaven. Show him around. The strongest heavenly talent of the Yin-Yang Heaven. The woman took a deep breath. An existence that even Your Excellency admitted was no match for? Is he really so strong? Yes, Your Excellency. Yu Chen patted Han Fei on the shoulder. Shu Xiaoman is a heavenly talent of our flying feather tribe and is very familiar with the battlefield. She will tell you the rest. Thanks to you, I have to go to the fearless barrier. I hope you haven't left when I come back. Shu Xiaoman said in surprise. The fearless barrier? Yu Chen smiled faintly. If you lose a fight, you have to be punished. Shu Xiaoman couldn't help but look at the smiling Han Fei. Is this person really so strong? Han Fei grinned. Maybe we will meet again. Yu Chen nodded slightly, tore open a void crack with a finger, and stepped in, leaving Shu Xiaoman and Han Fei in place. Han Fei smiled slightly. Hello. Shu Xiaoman narrowed her eyes. Did you really beat me? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. I used a secret method. Shu Xiaoman let out a long sigh of relief. but her eyes were a little provocative. "Guest, can I have a match with you?" Han Fei was a little surprised. This girl was obviously not convinced. Han Fei shrugged. "How?" Shu Xiaoman said. "Go to the great illusionary land. In the Shuemu heaven, no matter what happens, even if there is a conflict, it will be resolved in the great illusionary land. Fierce fighting is not allowed on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, which is easy to damage the leaves of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree." Han Fei said, "If it's just a match, it should be very fast." Shu Xiaoman said, "You can't damage the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, not even the leaves." Han Fei chuckled. "But if there is any damage, I lose." Shu Xiaoman's eyes were immediately filled with anger. Wasn't this person a little too arrogant? Although you got the venerable token, you are only a peak-level law enforcer. I am also a peak-level law enforcer. Why should I be convinced? Do I have to follow you just because you say so? What if I have to follow you for 3 years? Shu Xiaoman was immediately a little angry. You said that. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1177. Shu Xiaoman was extremely unhappy with Han Fei's contempt. She turned over and jumped away. In midair, the arrow turned into a rain of arrows, and there were hundreds of streams of light. Han Fei curled up the corners of his mouth. When fighting Yu Chen, he used a lock-on technique to target the enemy. It was meaningless to rely on speed, but it was different from yours. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei turned into a phantom and picked up the arrows with his bare hands. In an instant, all the arrows were shattered. At the moment of the explosion, the energy was swallowed by Han Fei before it could dissipate. Han Fei disappeared on the spot and appeared beside Shu Xiaoman before she could react. "I'm not strong enough to attack separately." Shu Xiaoman was shocked. She turned over, and a circle of blade-like algae leaves appeared to protect her body. However, the next moment, she was dumbfounded. Han Fei twisted his body and appeared in the algae leaf storm, standing next to her. And to prevent her from destroying the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, a defensive array appeared at some point. Her own blow couldn't break the array in a short time. Shu Xiaoman wanted to use other combat skills, but she heard a snap of fingers. In the void, countless chains appeared. In an instant, her range of action was blocked. It was too late. Shu Xiaoman wanted to use the death substitution technique to get herself out. However, as soon as she moved away, a circle of void chains wrapped her again. This time, they directly locked her, no longer giving her a chance to resist. To Shu Xiaoman's shock, Han Fei took back the void chains and smiled faintly. "Thank you, Shu Xiaoman." It was the first time that Shu Xiaoman had seen this kind of combat style. Catching arrows with bare hands, swallowing energy, instantly condensing an array, twisting space, and moving so fast that people couldn't react at all. How could there be such a person in this world? Shu Xiaoman thought that although she was not the strongest among her peers, she was not weak. But if she could exert her full strength, she was not weak. She could even be said to be very strong. However, when facing Han Fei, she was shocked to find that she didn't even have a chance to use it. In such a short time, she didn't even have a chance to run away. How could she fight? Shu Xiaoman took a deep breath and looked extremely serious. "I lost." Han Fei smiled and said, "Your reaction speed is already very fast. His battle awareness wasn't bad either. But if there's a chance, I can increase my strength." Young man pursed her lips helplessly. "I'll listen to you." Shu Xiaoman didn't take it seriously. Even Lord Yu Chen had lost. Wasn't it normal for her to lose as well? He heard her say, "Let's go. I'll bring you around the Flying Feather Command." However, I guess a lot of people are curious. Is everyone in the Yin Yang heaven like you? Han Fei couldn't have felt better. He said gloomily, "This is regional discrimination. Let me tell you, in our Yin Yang sky, I'm pretty good looking." Shu Xiaoman tilted her head and said, "Okay. Our Flying Feather Command is located on the west side of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, close to the realm of Frost. The city covered an area of about 50,000 kilometers, but they were all quite scattered. There are 8 other large tribes like the Flying Feather Command on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. This is all the humans in our waterwood heaven. There are hundreds of millions of them. Han Fei immediately understood. That was right. There couldn't be 72 venerables and only one human venerable. It seemed that the humans were divided into 9 tribes. In this way, there should be 9 venerable realm experts. However, Shu Xiaoman said, when Lord Yuchen becomes a venerable, there will be one more tribe. By then, there will be 10 tribes. Han Fei said in surprise, every venerable can form a tribe? Shu Xiaoman nodded. Of course, the Cloud Sea Divine Tree is very large. Even if there are 10 tribes, they can't live in a large area. Han Fei was puzzled. Aren't there other races here? Shu Xiaoman said solemnly, there are the Sky Clan, the Demonoplant Clan, and the Insect Clan, but they don't actually live in many places. For example, the Sky race love to live on the outer perimeter of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. The Insect race lived in groups in the hollow of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. The Demon Plants didn't divide their living quarters, but they usually lived at the bottom of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. Generally, except for powerful demonic plants, ordinary demonic plants won't fight. Well, the tree demons are an exception. Generally speaking, they are scattered. Han Fei said in surprise, then what if a war breaks out? How can we quickly gather the major races? Shu Xiaoman looked at Han Fei as if looking at a fool. There are venerables sending messages to us. Under the Venerable One's command, they only needed to specify the location. Because the creatures of the various races live too scattered, there are many teleportation arrays in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, which is convenient for everyone to gather quickly. Han Fei understood. To sum up, the Cloud Sea Divine Tree was so large that all the races added up couldn't live there. Because the distance between them was very far, teleportation arrays were needed. As they talked, Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman had arrived at the human gathering place. Walking out of the teleportation array, Han Fei immediately saw a large place similar to a market. All kinds of shops were placed in a mess. Some of the shops were hung on the trees, some were placed on the trunks, and some were arranged in a circle. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Han Fei looked at the tree trunks behind him, which were full of teleportation arrays. From time to time, people appeared from the arrays. The bustling crowd flowed in and out of the various shops. In addition to humans, there were also tree demons, and all kinds of things were being sold. Someone shouted, ice silk just made in the realm of cold ice. Does anyone want it? If you want to change your bowstring, hurry up. Someone sat in front of a stall on the ground. I just forged a divine feather bow. I want to exchange it for the black flood dragon's bones and tendons. A big spider was weaving a web and hanging in the air. On the spider web, there were all kinds of spiritual fruits and crystals, and it was scanning the crowd. The big spider said, don't miss it. These are all excellent spiritual fruits. A big beetle with giant horns was carrying an identical beetle, shouting, Junior Law Enforcer Insect Slew, if you miss it, you'll have to wait another 10 years. Immediately, someone ran over. I want it. What do you want to exchange for? The big beetle buzzed. I want the black tortoise strange stone, the dragon essence grass, and the purple pole fruit. The person who asked smiled bitterly. I don't have the dragon essence grass, but I do have the black tortoise strange stone and the purple pole fruit. The big beetle's eyes lit up. You can exchange the dragon essence grass for the fire essence grass. The person was immediately overjoyed. Yes. Han Fei looked at this scene in a daze, feeling a little incredulous. It was as if humans had gone to an alien society, where all sorts of strange creatures lived together harmoniously. Shu Xiaoman said proudly, such a big bazaar can only be found in our human gathering place. That's why countless living beings gather here every day just to shop and trade for goods. In addition to this large bazaar, there were all kinds of gossip here. A little treeman said, have you heard? Someone from the Yin-Yang heaven came. He's extremely strong. He defeated Master Yu Chen, a human quasi-venerable. Are you bragging? How could someone from the Yin-Yang heaven come? Yes, even if someone came, how could he defeat Master Yu Chen? What are you thinking? Master Yu Chen is going to become a venerable. The little treeman's branches trembled. I saw it with my own eyes. That person is so ugly. Hearing this, Han Fei was shocked. No, it's just that we're from different regions. Is it necessary? Han Fei turned his head, only to find that Shu Xiaoman was holding back her laughter and her face was red. Cough, cough, cough. Han Fei coughed a few times and secretly used the power of Beast Roar. Immediately, many people looked at Han Fei. Wow, is there really such a... someone from the Yin Heaven? Wow, isn't that Master Young Man? Why is she with someone from the Yin Heaven? Shu Xiaoman, did he really defeat Master Yu Chen? A human was astonished. So, people from the Yin Heaven look like this? A bird circled around his head. I think he looks okay. Don't all humans look like this? Hearing someone talking about his appearance, Han Fei immediately said, people from the Yin Heaven look like this. This is called masculinity. There's a story in Yin Heaven. According to the antiquity times, there was a peerless powerhouse called God Emperor Pangu in a human clan. His breath became the wind and clouds in the four seasons. His voice became thunders. His left eye became the sun that shone on the earth. His right eye became the moon. His torso became the mountains, rivers, and earth. His blood became the surging rivers and lakes. His hair became luxuriant flowers and trees. His sweat became the dew that nourished everything. But that's not the point. The point is that he looked like me. Puff, cough, cough. Duong, in the immortal palace, the kettle in the Life Queen's hand fell to the ground, and the roasted squid that Jinger had just stolen from the immortal palace sprayed out of her mouth. Wushang Shui was cultivating cross-legged. Suddenly, the spiritual energy in his body was disordered, and he almost blew up the courtyard. Shu Xiaoman looked at Han Fei in shock. Can people be so shameless? The little treeman waved its branches. Wow, that God Emperor Pangu is so powerful. A one-horned, long-horned beetle whipped its tentacles. Don't listen to him. Such a strong expert must have big horns. Only the insect clan can be so excellent. In an instant, a large group of people, treemen, insects, and birds all looked over. Someone asked, "Can I spar with him?" A girl asked, "Although I know he's bragging, what's his name?" "It's the first time I've seen such a person." A big bird exclaimed, "Look, he has a venerable token." Wow, it's really a venerable token. Where did he get it? Shu Xiaoman said to Han Fei, "Because you may have to live here for 3 years in the future. So, you'll have to meet the other races sooner or later. Why don't we do it today?" Han Fei didn't know what to say. Am I being treated as a monkey? Han Fei thought to himself, there are billions of creatures in all races. If I show them every day, I won't have to do anything. Immediately, Han Fei said, "Let's wait. They just need to know that I'm here." Shu Xiaoman nodded. Okay. Then Shu Xiaoman said to everyone, "Everyone, Han Fei still has a lot of things to do in the Shumu Heaven. I won't meet you one by one. What about you guys? Do whatever you need to do. We'll be leaving first." "Wait a minute, I want to spar with him." Someone was inviting him to fight. Shu Xiaoman tilted her head. "Go away. When you can beat me, come to Han Fei." While talking, Shu Xiaoman beckoned Han Fei into a teleportation array. After passing through several teleportation arrays in a row, Han Fei found that the branches around him became thinner and thinner. They should be walking to the periphery of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. At this moment, the two of them stood on a huge, empty branch. Shu Xiaoman said, "There have always been legends about the Yin Heaven in the Shumu Heaven. So, they know that you are from the Yin Heaven, so they will naturally be curious. You don't have to worry about it. But I said that you are here to transcend a tribulation. Is it urgent?" Han Fei thought for a moment. Transcending a tribulation was not deducing the void fishing art, so it shouldn't cause too much noise. Han Fei thought for a moment. "I can do it any time." Shu Xiaoman was taken aback. You can transcend a tribulation now? Is everything ready?" Third update. Asking for votes. Well, don't worry. I've been thinking about the plot recently. Take your time. It'll be quick. End of this chapter.